Bringing live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Good evening and welcome to the show. It's 2 minutes past 8 UK time. Good day to you listening around the world. And hello if it's the middle of December. You know, somebody will be podcasting this next summer. I've been looking at the way the podcasts work. People find Play Radio and then they podcast back and back. People are now podcasting stuff that we did in August. That means that somebody is walking the dog somewhere. I know, in Nairobi. And, well, that wouldn't be a dog, would it? Do they have dogs in Nairobi? I got that from that's a Manuel joke. Whoops, are you listening, Russell? Hello. Back to where I was. If you're podcasting this, hello, whatever. Do email, as long as you're certain that we're still alive. They're not allowed to put out songs on the radio, on BFBS, which is the Forces radio thing, for soldiers in war zones, in case they've been killed, you see.
Really?
And by that same token, really, you shouldn't send an email into a podcast unless you're certain that the presenter hasn't been killed. I shouldn't joke about it, but you can see how I'm thinking things through, because I'm that kind of a guy.
You really are, aren't you?
As is widely known. On tonight's show, good listener, listen now carefully. Come on. To clone or not to clone? They're cloning 16-year-old dead mice in Tokyo. Mice dies 16 years ago. They take pieces of its brain, put it in a deep freeze. 16 years later, they have cloned that mouse. Isn't that fantastic? But here's the question I want to ask our expert, who I'm going to really have to fight not to call the Clone Ranger. To his face.
Oh, dear.
Our expert is going to be asked this question by me. Does this mean that you can take a little snip of Grandad, right, before the crematorium and keep it in the deep freeze until the technology is here, and then you could have him back? That's what I want to know, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And maybe they've already done it.
And the same for you, you see, Fiona. We could actually take a piece of you now.
No.
Not a big piece.
Well,
We're a piece of me!
Well, I notice.
What is that? We're a piece of me. It's Play Radio, good evening. It's Play Radio UK, even good evening. We'll nip that bit out. I left off the UK. This is probably the best thing on the radio at the moment.
Probably.
But, what I was going to say, but it's not as though the competition amounts to anything, does it? So next Monday, we're doing a special on local radio. Yeah. We're going to be discussing local radio, and not in a picky way. And, you know, we're not going to be talking just about the things that peeve us, of which there are many. We're also going to be talking about some of the good things, about good old conventional buy a mask. A mask? Buy a mask. Back to the Clone Ranger. This is tight. We'll keep all this in. If I can find a Tonto joke between now and 8:10, then the whole thing will look scripted, which, as you know, Fiona, it isn't.
It isn't,
No. So we'll be getting the very latest lowdown then on cloning tonight, this evening. And then on Monday, we're going to be looking at local radio. And I'm quite interested now in hearing from anybody who'd be quite interested in having a listen to their local radio stations, BBC, commercial, whatever, local or regional, and just sending in an email with a couple of things about what they think. You know, what was good, what was bad, the programmes, the presenters, the news, any particular things they found a bit peeving, any particular things they thought were worth celebrating that were great. So that's our special on UK local radio. Although since we have listeners around the globe, I don't see why I should restrict it to the UK.
No, you shouldn't. And also...
Bossy. Carry on.
And also, bearing in mind we have internet radio.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. There's no reason why overseas listeners...
Oh, what?
No, listen. Pay attention. Overseas listeners couldn't listen to our local radio.
Oh, what a good point. What a very good point. I'm glad I persevered and let you finish the sentence.
Thank you.
Only the third time, isn't it, in a year? But it was worth hearing, the end of the sentence. You're absolutely right. I thought you were going to say that we should get people to listen to other people's internet radio stations. Broadcast from my bedroom. Hello, my name's Matt, and I've got... No, not really Matt. But no, we're not doing bedroom radio. Okay, what? We're not doing bedroom radio, we're not doing internet radio. We're just doing UK local radio, and I guess foreign local radio as well. Mm-hmm. We'll do. So that's a special, and it's next Monday. And if you're up for being one of our critics, you can nominate yourself. You can be anonymous if you want to, particularly because it's quite possible that some people will actually work for the radio stations that they want to either applaud or, here comes a good word, lambast.
Okay.
So if you want to be anonymous in your critique of your local or regional radio station, that's absolutely fine. Reminders of the ways in which you can contact us. Hello, it's Play Radio UK. It's the Tommy Boyd Show on a Monday. It's a filthy day, and we all feel like crap warmed up because it's a Monday. So I'm not expecting too much vibrancy, although I'm going to keep my energy levels through until midnight. And Fiona is here as well. And you always pace yourself well, don't you?
Do I?
You do, don't you? I think you do. Here's how to contact. Our number is 01243 55 60 60. You can email, it's studio@playradiouk.com, or you can Skype. Our address is play.radio.uk. So also on tonight's show, besides cloning, we're going to be hearing from our sex worker, Catherine Catt, who's going to be here talking the arts. Do we know what she's been to see, view, listen to this week?
No, not yet.
Fine. We'll also be hearing from her talking to listeners with kinks, because she's a sex worker. I had an email last week from a listener saying, I feel uncomfortable now that I know Catherine, because he's heard her a few times on a Monday night at around about 10. I feel uncomfortable with you describing her as a hooker. Mm. I didn't feel uncomfortable, the guy said, with the word hooker before I sort of knew somebody.
Yeah.
It's intimate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before I came to sort of know somebody who is now described as a hooker. And now it somehow feels inappropriate. Isn't that interesting?
It is very interesting.
How labyrinthine the mind.
Mm.
However, Catherine Catt does not mind being called a hooker.
Do you feel uncomfortable at all?
I did to begin with, but now that I'm certain through hearing the tone of her voice when I say the hooker, and I can tell that she's absolutely comfortable with it,
yes.
now I feel fine. Thank you for asking, though. So she is going to be talking to listeners who have kinks. So, good listener, if you have a slight kink, or if you've got a huge kink, loads of kinks, I mean, whatever your kink, I can't imagine anybody is kink-free.
You mean fetish, really, don't you? When you say kink, I mean, it makes them sound like they've got a wonky something.
Well, all right, fetish then.
Right.
No, I prefer kink, actually.
Do you?
Well, I think, as I see it, right, you've got normal missionary position sex, which I can't believe is the kind of sex that anybody only ever thinks about doing or does. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to get more interesting than that.
Right.
And then as soon as you do that, as soon as it's non-missionary, it's a bit kinky, isn't it?
Do you think?
Don't you think so? Woman on top?
Mm-hmm.
In a room other than the bedroom? If a woman's on top, and or it's a room other than the bedroom, that's the beginning of a kink.
Do you think?
Yeah, of course they do. Because the Catholic Church would have us only making love. Missionary position in the bedroom. Twice a week.
Unless you don't want to get pregnant, and then you have to do it standing up.
All of that. But we'll just we'll take definitions of what is kinky as the show unfolds, as I'm wont to say. Take a quick call. Good evening. You're on Play Radio UK.
Hello. I don't really want to say my name because of the nature of what I'm about to say.
Fine.
I won't be around later when the lady is talking about the kinky fetishes. But before I talk about the fetish, you were on about the cloning and getting a bit of Grandad. If you've read Deepak Chopra, he actually believes that everything about you is contained in every single cell in your body, including your memory. So it wouldn't really matter what part of Grandad you got hold of from his DNA. You know, even some cheese around his willy, you know, that'd have his memory as well, but it wouldn't have his soul. So it'd be like having the computer program without the person operating the machine.
Well, two things on what you've said. I don't believe that a person's DNA is present in any of the body's detritus. Only in living tissue, you see.
Right, but once you've taken the cell from the body, it's no longer living anyway.
No, but it has to be taken from a part of the body that is alive. So hence the item of detritus that you charmlessly mentioned, along with, for example, I suppose, athlete's foot extras,
yes,
or earwax, nose droppings, clippings.
But
pickings,
you're saying that.
Tears.
What about sperm? Because when that's found at crime scenes, that's actually linked to the person.
What, sperm?
Yes.
Well, sperm's very different from nose pickings.
Is it, though? Because
yes.
Well, I suppose you couldn't get pregnant from somebody's nosebleed or anything, could you?
No. Nor can you flick sperm. But
yes. But what was your second point? Because I agree with that one, yes.
My second point is now completely overshadowed. Right, a very long and dark shadow has fallen over my second point.
Oh, God.
To the point where, frankly, without a miner's lamp, I don't think I'd be able to find my way to the lift.
No.
Where were we? You were saying about Grandad and him not having a soul if he's cloned. This is what we don't know. But you see, I meet a lot of people who haven't got a soul, don't you?
You mean the soulless bastards?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course. The majority of people don't seem to have a soul.
Is that like saying that they kind of operate on their primitive, like, programming? They're very instinctual and aggressive and maybe insensitive.
Yes.
And they don't contain things like the compassion that you would learn with a soul.
No. Absolutely not.
They're usually women, to be honest.
Not in my orbit, but where do you live?
I don't want to say, because that might give it away.
Fair enough. Deepak Chopra, who you mentioned, is a very fine man, even though he is the one-on-one counsellor of Michael Jackson. I think he does that out of compassion and not for the money.
Oh, probably the money, I'd say.
Yes.
But he's a very intelligent man. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually believe you can prove that you exist on this plane. He believes that the material world...
Yes.
Scientists can't prove that we're actually in the material world because all we have to measure are things that we've been given in the material world, like our senses.
We ought to explain to any listener who does not know who Deepak Chopra is. He's probably the greatest living guru, who took over, in a sense, from, I believe his name is Jiddu Krishnamurti.
That's one of his heroes, yes.
Absolutely, and everybody's who's ever read any Krishnamurti. But Chopra is probably best known not for his scientific ponderings, such as you just alluded to, but for ways of being and ways of being reasonably contented in what is, after all, as Shakespeare said, a vale of tears.
Yes.
Was it Shakespeare? It doesn't matter. I particularly like one thing he said. He's given his children only one prayer. He told them to pray that tomorrow brings upheaval. Because he says it's only through change that we grow. And I think that's a very clever prayer because, A, it's true. And a lot of the people you meet who are soulless have never taken any risks and have never suffered anything other than life's normal knocks.
Yes.
But also, it rather guards you for when you do experience change that you hadn't planned or hoped for, because he's got you thinking already, this is going to do me good. So I think that beats any of the 160 Psalms into a cocked hat. What a load of crap the Psalms seem to me to be.
It is. It's about the journey of your spirit.
Yes.
And that in itself is developing the eternal soul.
Absolutely.
but it's on that note that I want to talk about my fetish, which is it's golden showers.
Are you sure you don't want to wait and talk to Catherine, our sex worker? I'm not really,
I won't be around then, unfortunately.
Oh, why? What's going to happen?
I'm at work.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. You won't be around. It smacks rather of...
I'm not gonna top myself after this conversation.
No, well, it's just that apparently...
I could leave some sperm and see if it works.
Apparently George Bush is prepared to let Barack Obama see all the secret documents that have been denied public access for decades, including what really happened at Roswell and who shot JFK. But he's not going to let him see a document which is simply entitled Obama 2010. Okay.
No.
So anyway, so you won't be around after 10 o'clock. Okay, well, give us a few bits of detail. I'll just remind the listener what gives here. Our sex worker, Catherine Catt, our hooker, who is also our arts correspondent, is going to take some listeners' kinks on board this evening and give us her... I can't wait. I can't wait. No doubt tell us how fantastic they all are. So we've got... Anonymous online, whatever it is, 3.
Stingray, you can call me.
So Stingray wants us to ask Catherine, what about golden showers?
Yes, it's a fetish that kind of disturbs me originally, but I've explored it since, and I'm wondering if the pursuit of this fetish, in the sense that I'm actually getting used to it and enjoying it, if that's a danger in itself.
So you're enjoying being golden showered?
Well, my fetish is the lady. I can't do it with men because I find that revolting.
Yes, especially if they've had asparagus.
Oh, God, yeah, because it stinks, and beetroot as well. I don't like it red or...
No.
I can't have it yellow either. It has to be totally white way, because...
you in other words, you want them to drink nothing but water for the whole day before they... In that case, that's not really a golden shower, is it?
No, but that's what they call it.
It's more platinum.
I'll take them out and I'll plunge them with mineral water,
yes,
you know.
It's translucent shower, we'll call it, shall we?
Yeah.
Opaque.
Yeah, but, you know, I've been with a prostitute once and it was all yellow and smelly, and I had to say, get out, that's disgusting.
Yes.
And I didn't even pay her at the time.
No.
But,
well, you need them to drink a lot of water before they give you this translucent shower. You need them to pee pale, as the Californians call it.
Yes, it has to be pure white, you know, where it doesn't smell, and it takes the edge off the taste, because I do like it in my mouth, but I won't swallow it.
No.
I won't.
Okay, so what is the specific question, just to pin you down, unless, of course, that's also one of your fetishes?
No.
Okay.
Not like Steve. Is it Steve last week? The footstool.
He's coming on to talk to Catherine about his desire to be a woman's footstool. And we have another caller, Chris, who wants to talk about the fact he likes his ladies to be covered in pie.
Oh, God.
And another guy who wants to talk to her about the fact that he is attracted to trees.
Oh, God, that's branching out a bit, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I won't give him any stick.
No, all right. Now, we twigged.
But if he takes a leaf out of my book...
Yes, all right.
It's going to get wet.
We'll draw a line there, shall we? Unless that's one of your fantasies.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind being a toilet footstool.
What is your question to Catherine Catt about your golden shower fetish?
Well, I just want to know, is it natural to be first disgusted about an extreme fetish and then actually, you know, enjoy it?
So is it natural to first be disgusted?
Is it natural? Yeah, is it natural to enjoy something that disgusted you but turned you on?
Thank you very much indeed for your contribution and your excellent call. Look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
It's 8:20, and also I forgot to headline the show with Andy's headache. Andy Wise each week provides us with one of his headaches. And his headache this evening is, has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? So if you can help Andy out with his weekly headache, Andy Wise headache this evening is, has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? You can email studio@playradiouk.com. You can call 01243 55 60 60.
Play 2 UK headlines.
It's been ruled that a high-ranking British soldier was unlawfully killed in Afghanistan because the army was making do with limited equipment. Captain David Hicks from 1st Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, died in Helmand in August 2007. VAT could be cut to encourage us to spend our way out of the recession. Pressure's mounting on the Chancellor to announce a 5.5% cut in his pre-budget report, possibly next week. The global financial crisis will top the agenda when the incoming US President Barack Obama visits the White House shortly. Himself and his wife Michelle will take a look round their new home before a meeting in the Oval Office. And finally, 23 flood warnings are in place across the UK this evening. The Midlands and the South West are thought to be at the highest risk after several days of torrential rain and high winds.
Play 2 UK weather.
Heavy rain and strong winds in the southeast will clear during the evening. Many central and eastern parts will then have a dry night. The north and west will be windy with heavy showers. Gales are likely in southwest Scotland. Looking on to tomorrow, a windy day with gales in northwest England and Northern Ireland. Sunny spells but occasional showers with a longer spell of heavy rain for northwest England and Northern Ireland.
And coming up after the commercial break, we're getting news that the Hare Krishnas are to split due to musical differences.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK. Heard a song you love? Then help us by buying your favourite chart CD through Amazon. Just click on the banner at playradiouk.com. The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
I got an email in from Sonny on the US election. Sonny apologises, quite long sorry, but it looks good, Fiona, so pin 'em back. It's Play Radio UK, it's Monday evening. Filthy in the United Kingdom. Hope it's better where you are, almost certainly. Good evening, Poland and America and Canada, where we know we're strong on a Monday night. 8:24 here. A good day around the world. And hello if it's the following August and you've podcast us. This is the email. It says, "Hi, Tommy. Everyone's talking about the US voting in the first black president, but there's one prejudice that shows no sign of being broken in US politics, and that is, when will the US vote for an atheist or agnostic president?" I've done a bit of research. This is Sunny still. And the last US president that was an atheist is Abraham Lincoln. Did not know that. Back in the 1800s. And even with him, there is some debate as to whether or not he was actually an atheist or not. But while I think you can say with some conviction that the racial divide in the US, while still there, is getting better all the time, I'd certainly make the argument that the US is getting further and further away from voting for an atheist president. This is very true. Christians in the US seem to have so much power when it comes to electing the president, and I think it's quite scary when you hear quotes from somebody like George Bush that God told him to invade Iraq, and when you have the whole good versus evil thing being pushed, which is clearly being done on religious grounds, with the Christian West on the side of good and the Islams on the side of evil, I quote. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Tommy, given your agnostic leanings. I think you could certainly make the argument that a president that does what is right because it is the right thing to do would make a better president than somebody who does things based on what some book written 2,000 years ago tells him to do. Sunny.
Well done.
Okay.
I have all the last lot of presidents all been Christians, have they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catholic, mostly. As far as I can remember, I don't think there have been any prots. Mostly Irish and Scottish extract, you see. Mostly Irish. I mean, the Bushes are descended from some Yorkshiremen, but they keep that quiet because it's rather ignominious to be English in America. You have to be Irish, preferably. Welsh and Scottish is not too bad. Don't know why.
Right.
Okay, well, taking a look at it, I think that about 15 years ago, I wrote a book. I started writing a book. I wrote the first 6 chapters, and I sent it off with a précis to some publishers. I thought it was a good idea, and here was the scenario. Mm-hmm. In the not-too-distant future, I said, the Cold War will be over, and a new war will come to take its place. based not on the conflict between political ideologies, but based on religious differences. It will be a war between Islam and the rest, in particular, the Christian world. Now, I'm not pretending I've got a crystal ball here. These rumblings were already beginning to happen in the, whatever it was, the mid-90s, when I wrote the thing. Okay. And what I suggested was that Black Ops in Washington came up with this idea to recreate the Second Coming. Okay, so they'd find some guy who looked a bit like Jesus, and who was a little bit kind of, shall we say, out there, and they would have him, right, be responsible for some actual miracles, which the FBI could very easily create using CGI and, you know, whatever. David Blaine could probably advise. All right? And the idea would be that they could win this war of religions, of prophets, if you like, by suggesting that Christ is the prophet because he's come back, and no sign of Muhammad. Anyway, the interesting thing was, they didn't write back, the publishers, and say, this is the worst piece of writing we've ever seen, which it probably was. They wrote back and said, this is the most ridiculous idea that we've ever heard, because we can't imagine that the world will ever be divided along religious lines. After all, this is 1994.
Really?
Yeah. Take a quick call, as long as it's clean and lawful. Hiya, you're on Play Radio UK.
I've got an idea of how to solve the religious problem that you. I think I'm getting it right when you foretold that there will be a war between the rest of the world and Islam. Yes.
Yes.
To get the general gist here. My idea, right, is that they settle it over 18 holes. Each one nominates a golfer, and the one who wins, and then it's all done. And there can be no cheating.
No, that's ridiculous, because it's obviously so weighted towards the Catholics, because that golf is almost entirely a Christian game. Can you name me one Islam player?
No, I can't. But
can you name me one Mohammedan off 5?
No, they don't have. There isn't. But they don't have to pick one from. They can just pick one. Anyone.
What do you mean, anyone?
Anyone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be. They can just nominate.
No, that doesn't work. You can't.
Of course it works.
They'd be mercenaries.
No,
they'd be bloody mercenaries. They'd be like the dogs of war. You can't ask the likes of Podrick Harrington to be a dog of war.
Of course you can.
He's a pudgy, goofy little overgrown leprechaun. You can't expect him to go.
Have you seen his eyes?
They don't swivel.
He has fire in his eyes.
Oh, I see. Fire, was it?
So, this way, right, consider there's no cheating, right, and it must be conducted in a gentlemanly fashion with honour and dignity, and if you lose, you lose, right? That would solve the problem, and it would make good TV. It would get better ratings than the Ryder Cup. Could you imagine the crowds? Never mind all this USA. It would be like bloodthirsty.
Yes, I don't know.
I've come up with a winner there.
Well, you haven't, but because, after all, where would you stage it? You'd have to stage it somewhere neutral, and there aren't any golf courses, as far as I know, in any of the Sunni or Shiite territories. Is there a golf course in Iraq?
There's a golf. There is. Yes, there is.
No, there isn't.
It's in the desert. Yes, it is.
Well, where else would it be in Iraq?
It's in a total of Iraq is a desert. Iraq has a lovely coastline.
Oh yeah, but it's not going to be in the tundra, isn't it? It's not going to be in the wooded part of Iraq.
It has they use sand and oil mixture for greens, and they're called blacks. And you carry a little bit of turf around with you, and you play off that.
Yes, I'm going to have to work very hard on the notion that it's possible that someone might come up this evening with a bigger load of old bollocks. But thank you very much indeed for your call.
That's all.
Language, Timothy. 8:30 it is, 8:30. 2030 it is in the United Kingdom. And where else? What time is it in France? Do you know? This time thing is getting out of hand,
isn't it? It's about an hour difference, isn't it? But I don't know whether that's before or after.
I don't know. I just don't know. And the funny thing is, we are the country, the United Kingdom, which is considered to have the world's stopwatch in its hand. Wherever you go around the world, people will speak in funny accents about Greenwich Mean Time. Or Greenwich Mean Time, mate. You go to America and you say, what sort of time is that? They'll go, Greenwich Mean Time. So, and yet we can't work out for ourselves what our own time is. Bloody ridiculous.
Well, we know what our own time is.
But keep farting around with it. changing it by an hour, this way, that way, this way, that way. Also, the children can go out into the fields and get the harvest in. I'm digressing slightly.
You are.
The Hare Krishnas are due to split due to musical differences. It's been announced tonight in a move rather reminiscent of what happened to the Beatles. Internationally renowned folk mantra group the Hare Krishnas announced today that they are splitting up. The announcement was made by the group's manager, Ramai Swami, during a hastily arranged press conference in New York, the group's western birthplace. He said, it is with deep regret that I today have to announce the Hare Krishnas have taken the decision to call it a day and disband. The main reason behind our decision is musical differences. Though this is an amicable split and the group's members wish to extend their eternal gratitude to their many fans around the world for the support they've given over the years. So, Play Radio can reveal that the Hare Krishnas are to split. The band, written off by many as one-hit wonders, they rose to prominence in the 60s when their debut smash Hare Krishna, coupled with their outrageous performance style of creating a sense of bemusement and mild discomfort in public places, soon brought them fame the world over. However, the decision by the group's management that they should play it safe and stick with the same material for over 4 decades saw their popularity steadily decline, and many disillusioned fans felt that the group had become creatively bankrupt. It just wasn't fun anymore, said Moonshower Thompson, a call centre worker from Hampshire, who left the group in 2007. Many of us were desperate to take the group in a new direction. Some wanted to add a third note to Hare Krishna. What?
Nothing, carry on.
What? This means a lot to a lot of people.
I know, I'm listening.
You know. When a band splits up, it's a big deal. They're like brothers and sisters to their fans.
Can you remember any of their tracks?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Is that it?
Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. All right?
Right, is that it?
And I'm not even a fan.
No.
I finish. One member started dressing as a goth and the other started covering Marilyn Manson. But he was made to feel unwelcome. So there's the big news this evening from the world of music. Hare Krishna to split.
So is that what happened to the Beatles? Was it due to musical differences?
Yes. It was. I don't know. I can't imagine them arguing, and yet again I can. I can imagine John Lennon arguing with anybody, and I think Paul McCartney probably can sulk. Ringo, I think, probably just took it all with a pinch of salt.
Do you think?
And George had another fag, and that's what it did for the world. 25 to 9. Don't know why I'm giving time checks. This is Jamie in Renfrewshire. Jamie says, Tommy, only today discovered your latest port of call. I've been a massive fan of your shows over the years, and I've been looking forward to the programme all day. I have nothing constructive to add. Beyond that, I'm just delighted to be able to listen to you once again. That's Jamie in Renfrewshire. Oh, I know what you'll be interested in then, Jamie. We've teamed up with a Scottish firm. Is Renfrewshire in Scotland? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it is. It is. Jamie in Renfrewshire, you'll be delighted to know that we've teamed up with a Scottish firm called Revo.
Oh, right.
Now, I don't know what Revo actually stands for. It could stand for revolution, or it could be the middle bit of somebody called Trevor. Don't laugh. I had a TVR, which I thought was the dog's bollocks of cars, until I found out that the letters TVR stood for the fact that the bloke who designed them was called Trevor, and that changed the whole image. Anyway,
It would.
we've teamed up with Revo, and we're getting a shed load of Wi-Fi internet radios.
Now you tell me.
Retail price $99.99, and we're going to be giving them away in a series of exciting competitions, including whoever can feed us back by email the best, most constructive and percipient... Is that a word?
It is now.
Yes. Perspicacious, I'll put in there. We'll change it. Perspicacious views about internet radio and Play Radio UK in particular. And that competition is still open, and we've had about 80 entries so far. All you have to do is email us your thoughts generally on internet radio. The good about it, the bad about it, what its future is, what it could be doing even more, because we do have some freedoms that conventional radio doesn't have, but we're very careful about wanting to use them well. In other words, we can say the F word where it's appropriate, but we don't use it gratuitously. We wouldn't say the C word except to report it as having been used elsewhere. But we can state our political views. So, for example, James Whale would be allowed to say on this radio station, vote for Boris Johnson. Yeah. Because that's not against the law, but it's against the broadcasting law as laid down by Ofcom that other sorts of radio have to adhere to.
Yes.
So, Jamie, if you fancy a crack at that, and we'll be, who knows, you might be celebrating with a Scottish Wi-Fi radio. The ones that we're giving away are called the Blick. And you've got a Wi-Fi radio, Fiona, Fifi, and how is it performing now?
I love it.
Go on.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
I want to know, do you get buffering problems with it?
No, not buffering problems, but every so often, because I'm not in a great reception area, every now and then because it obviously depends where your Wi-Fi, what do you call it, your router,
yes,
where that is in the house. So
right,
where I like to use my radio, it's not a great reception area. So, but that's okay.
Okay,
that's
and
good.
Besides Play Radio UK, what do we sound like coming out of it? Does it sound like an ordinary radio?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what else?
I'm really loving the music that we play.
Have you listened to other radio stations just for the arse of it?
Yeah, I have.
What have you listened to?
I couldn't tell you what they're called, but I've tried to pick up some talk stations in the States.
Yes.
Come across a few different things. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's good to have a bit of fun with.
All right, I'm going to take an email from Happy Tree, who says, I think Eduardo's idea has some merit. Eduardo called earlier to say that we should settle the world's current major conflict, which is a clash of religious ideologies, by having a game of golf, which wouldn't work because the West would win easily. And Happy Tree is suggesting that they shouldn't play golf, they should play kabaddi.
What's that?
A very strange, impenetrable game played on the subcontinent, it seems to me, where you have a line drawn in the sand, 6 men on either team, and they sort of go towards each other, and and they touch, and then they run away again, and then they touch, and I don't know.
Bizarre.
It was on Channel 4 shortly after they lost the rights to sumo. We're heading towards a commercial break, so we'll say good evening to Fat Steve, and can you hold?
I can hold.
Beautiful.
The soundtrack to your festive season. Play Christmas UK.
Ho, ho, ho! Hello, boys and girls. Santa here. Pipe down, Rudolph. Ho, ho, ho! As you can tell, Christmas in the Claus household is well and truly underway. As with any family, it's a busy time for us too, and sometimes things can get a little heated, with Mrs. Claus always wanting to listen to Play Rock, when all I want to listen to is my favourite festive songs on Play Christmas. Nothing but the season's music from the Play Radio Network. Now, where did I put that eggnog? Ho, ho, ho.
Play Christmas UK.
Part of the PlayRadioUK.com network.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
passiononline.co.uk has something for everybody, with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. Click passiononline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
Want to see Wonderbra star Katie Green, Lee Francis, the man behind Avid Marion and Keith Lemon, Sunday League Madness, Jimmy Carr, 2009's Best Games Reviewed, and brand new Jennifer Ellison picks. For the fittest women, the biggest celebs, and the loudest laughs, get loaded. New issue on sale now.
Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
So a bit later on, we'll be hearing from Catherine, our friendly hooker who is reviewing the arts for us. We're also talking about a number of news stories today, and one that's not going away is the story about the mouse which has been cloned, a mouse that had been dead and frozen for 16 years. And somewhere in Japan, in Kobe, at the Centre for Developmental Biology. They've done this research taking the brain cells from this dead mouse. It's been stored for 16 years, and they've removed their nuclei and apparently managed to recreate the mouse. It's Play Radio UK with Tommy and Fiona and Fat Steve. You there, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Just remind us again, you're with us on the show in Atlanta.
Yes, Atlanta, Georgia.
OK, join in the conversation as we say good evening to Professor Malcolm Allison.
Hello, hi.
Good evening, Professor. Professor of STEM Biology from Barts and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry. What have they done? Malcolm, what have they done in Japan exactly?
Well, it's a bit like the sort of so-called dolly technology. What they have done is to taken adult cells, in this case, in fact, from a mouse that's been deep frozen in a freezer for 16 years, and they put them into other mouse cells, sort of egg cells, which have been emptied of their nucleus, and they've been able to generate brand new mice from mice that were dead 16 years ago.
So, what happens? With what do they combine the piece of the nuclei, the cells that contain the DNA? With what do they combine them to begin the process of the mouse developing? Okay, so I mean this process has been called therapeutic cloning. You've heard all about embryonic stem cells, but the problem with embryonic stem cells is that they're often foreign to the system you're putting into. So what they've done here is they've taken a normal adult cell, which has a normal complement of chromosomes, and what they've done is taken a nucleus, which obviously contains all the chromosomes, and they've put these into an egg cell, which has had its normal nucleus taken out. And of course, what the egg cell does is it's cytoplasm, if you like the egg white. It has reprogrammed this nucleus back to a sort of primitive state so that it can actually produce the complete new body. It's fantastic.
Professor, I have a question.
That they've done this not from a living cell, but from a cell that's been frozen for many years.
How long has sperm managed to live after?
Yes, absolutely. The whole point is that if you go to IVF clinics, then people have stored sperm for many, many years, well over 16 years, and they've stored these sperm cells out, and they've been perfectly viable. They have been able to swim around and fertilize oocytes. That's no problem. The problem with this therapeutic cloning, where you put an adult normal cell into an egg cell, is that it's a very finicky process. It doesn't really work. So the fact that you can do this with a cell that's been frozen for, just in this case, for 16 years, it is really quite interesting.
Where is box
of what you can do.
Where is the fertilized egg incubated in a mouse's womb?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they call it a pseudo-pregnant mother. Yeah.
Right.
By sort of doing artificial mating, they can make the female mouse receptive to take these fertilized oocytes. They become embedded in the womb, and they develop to term and generate brand new mice. Yeah.
So in theory, then, provided it had been frozen, you could take a piece of Steve's grandfather's Steve's late great grandfather's finger and extract from it the necessary to embed that in the egg of effectively a neutral mother, whose own DNA would not in any way penetrate this new creature, this new being, I hesitate to say human being, but it would look like one, I guess. And then what will be born out of a woman in a normal way...
Yeah, well, you've heard about boys from Brazil.
That would be Steve...
Right. I mean, if you think about it, you are a clone. Once your mother's egg and your father's sperm get together, you are then a clone of that union.
Okay.
Because cloning is simply reproduction of identical beings, but the whole diversity of human beings is apparent because of your mother, your mother's side and your father's side. But once they join together, you are actually a clone of that. It's just like potatoes, you know. So, yeah.
If I was a lady lesbian and I wanted to have a baby with my partner,
yeah.
Does using this technology, would that make it easier taking the DNA from one and then implanting it in the other, or even a woman implanting her own DNA in herself?
Yes, I mean, that's possible. I mean, the whole point is that process is called reproductive cloning, and by law that is not permissible, as far as I know, in any country in the world at the moment.
Okay.
You can do therapeutic cloning, where you can generate tissues, but you cannot do reproductive cloning, where you take an adult cell, you put it into a egg cell which has had its DNA removed. You cannot put that into a mother and bring that to term. That's called reproductive cloning. You can't do that.
How do we know? What do we know about how well they've got on, the likes of Dolly the sheep and these cloned Japanese mice?
The problems with that is that that Dolly the sheep tended to age rather prematurely, and that's probably because she was born. They were using a mother who already had old cells. You're already you're bringing to term an infant from an embryo which is already using an old cell in a nucleus, in a oocyte, an egg cell which had its DNA removed. So
were they able to calculate the acceleration, the rate of acceleration of this aging process? I mean, was a normal sheep's life of 10 years condensed into 2 or 5 years?
It had all sorts of immune problems that I'm not exactly au fait with. All the details it has, I'm not sure anybody has. But it certainly wasn't a complete... It seemed to age prematurely.
So how's this going to aid medical science then, or is it a couple of guys after a Nobel Peace Prize, or are they just having fun?
Because it
must be fun.
I think if you look at the article, which is in quite a prestigious journal, it was in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the USA. I mean, before I actually saw the article, I thought it was all the press digging this up. But in fact, if you look at their article, it actually says, we can then probably, bring back to life, woolly mammoths frozen in the permafrost 40,000 years ago.
Okay.
But that's actually in the article, so they're actually claiming this. I mean, this is somewhat a bit fantastic because, what they found was that the cells that were any good at doing this were particular cells from the central nervous system, from the brain. And funny enough, these cells have, for example, neuronal cells in the brain, high levels of glucose. And it's well known to those people that involved in storing tissues in tissue banks in the UK and other places, that, for example, cells which are high in levels of sucrose are very good at being able to be stored. So what we're saying is that it's possible. What it is a proof of concept that it's possible under ideal conditions. There may be a mammoth that's chopped dead in the into the permafrost, where some of the cells, perhaps on the very outside of the animal, which would be frozen in the right way, and maybe these cells, they don't have the ice crystals in them. Their DNA, their chromosomes are perfectly restored, and you bring out these cells, you thaw them out, you put them into an egg cell which has had its DNA removed, and the cytoplasm of the egg cell will then reprogram this adult cell, and it will become a cell able to create a blastocyst, which is the first being of the embryo, and hey presto, you've got a new woolly mammoth.
Does the empty cell, does it have to be, wouldn't that have to be another mammoth though? It would be...
No, it wouldn't. No, there's already legislation which is legalized by the Human Fertilization and Embryology Act to produce, for example, human and cow hybrid cells, to look at the reprogramming of, for example, cow nuclei in human embryos, or a human oocytes, for example, or the other way around. No, I think you would want to perhaps put this cell into for example, a what we say, perhaps an elephant eggcell, an elephant oocyte, yeah.
But in theory, a woman could give birth to a woolly mammoth.
No, don't be silly.
Why?
No, I don't think so. No, I think that...
But she could sleep with one after it was cloned.
Shut up.
What is going to be the surrogate mother here?
All right.
I think, I guess, I'm not a great zoologist, but I would guess that the most appropriate mother would be an elephant.
So it needs to be a creature that is similar to the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last question then, and for me it's the $64,000 question, Professor Allison. If we cloned you, Professor Malcolm Allison,
yes.
Professor of STEM Biology from Barts and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry, would the clone be you? Or someone else? Or in a sense, nobody?
Cool, blimey. And that's a philosophical question.
Yeah.
I mean, we know we can create sheep. We know we can create prime beef stock. We know we can clone racehorses. We can clone your favourite cat or your favourite rat. In terms of the soul, if you believe in that or anything else, I honestly don't know. And we know we can. There are firms already in the United States, or if you have a ailing dog, you can take a dog cell from certain regions and you can create dogs which look identical to your favourite Fido. Whether that Fido has the same soul, well, that's not a question for me to answer, I think.
Fair enough. You've answered all the others brilliantly. Professor Allison, thank you so much for your time. That was fascinating. Fascinating.
Right, okay.
Good night. Nice man. He sort of sounded just like you would expect, you would hope a good sort of British professorial expert would sound. Something like... He wouldn't be at all out of place, would he, Steve, advising the doctor on some kind of new... something that's crawled out from the centre of the earth or something.
You don't imagine his shirt completely tucked in.
Exactly. Exactly. And the pipe, man, he's a pipe smoker. But, interesting, isn't it?
I wonder if there's money to be made in stem cells.
How would you go about it?
Well, me personally would be just, buying some stock in a stem cell corporation.
It's the trouble with you Americans, you used to actually come up with stuff. Now the Japanese and we invent all the shit. Barack's going on about a land of ideas, ideas. This is the country where we have ideas. No, you don't. You just invest. Badly.
That was my idea.
It's true, though, isn't it? What was the last thing that the Americans invented? You're not allowed to say the bomb. It probably was. We've invented everything. We invented the jet engine and the hovercraft and, and the computer and the internet, You guys...
The Police Academy franchise.
I like the guy who can do the noises.
Michael Winslow, yes. I once sort of faux pawed with that guy, or I made a joke that he didn't find funny at all.
Go on.
Well, my friend, who's a comedian, was opening up for him at this comedy club, and we were both... At that point, it was just when the smoking regulations were coming in, so you could, smoke in the bathroom.
Okay.
So he and I were smoking, at the sinks, and there was some guy who you could totally hear having massive diarrhea in one of the stalls. And comes out, and it's Michael Winslow. And I go, hey, that sounded just like a guy taking a shit. And he didn't think that was funny at all.
Because he was taking a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's bad. That's poor. Very poor. Although I used to do it myself sometimes, just to hear the guys standing at the urinals trying to stifle their laughter. So you're in there, okay, and you're sat down, you're reading your paper, having a quiet one. Really, often you just go in there just to have 10 minutes to yourself, don't you? Because at work, you're always working. You're standing there at the urinals, and in comes, Andy sits next to you, and you start carrying on talking about work. The only place you can get 10 minutes to yourself is in the stalls. So you're sat there and you're bored, and you hear a guy come in, and then 2 seconds later another guy comes in. So all you have to do is go, oh,
delicious.
Yeah. And then you can hear them You know, you can sense that these two guys who don't know each other are looking at each other and going, "Oh, dear me." So it helps you get through another day. So anyway, Steve, good talking to you. Thank you for joining in the interview. You must do that more often.
Yeah. Wonderful.
You're
Thanks.
good value.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. That's Steve in Atlanta. He Skypes in. If you're fresh to this, welcome to Play Radio UK. Here's a bit of a breath of fresh air, I suppose, and not self-consciously so, on the radio scene, not just the UK radio scene, but we're global, spreading around the world. And one of the things we do, besides conventional phone-in, is we also encourage people to use voice on the internet protocol. It's called VoIP. But their big player is Skype. Everybody's tried. BT tried their own VoIP protocol thing, but it didn't take off. Skype is the one that's won. And if you haven't got Skype on your PC or your laptop, Google Skype, SKYPE, and then you can just download. It takes about 90 seconds, the Skype program. It's pretty self-explanatory, I really think it is, but if you have any problems, then email us and we'll put you right. You do need, if you're going to be on the radio using Skype, one of those headset things that look like call centre operators have, and they cost about $9.99, I think, the bargain basement one in PC World.
I think so.
Yep. And then our address, you'll have your own address, which you make up when you sign up, and our address is play.radio.uk. And then you can make all these calls for free. The great thing about it from our point of view is that people can call in from around the world, and A, it doesn't cost them a penny, not a penny,
No.
and B, it sounds like they're almost in the studio with us.
Yeah.
Whereas telephones, bless them, 20th century things that they are, don't. Chris has Skyped in. What's he got to say?
Have a look.
I have a Wi-Fi radio, which is great. Oh, yeah, we're talking about teaming up with Revo, the Scottish company which is blazing the trail with Wi-Fi radios. Fiona's got one. I want one. I bet you do too. Listening on your PC or your laptop is one thing. But if you had a radio in the house by the bed or in the kitchen, okay, which could pick up 10,000 radio stations from around the world.
Fantastic.
Including Play Radio UK, just like any other radio station. It's got a headphone socket, so you can listen in bed if you want to.
Yeah.
And the ones that we're getting Revo to supply to us to give away as prizes in a whole range of competitions, which is worth £100. It's got like an alarm clock radio. You can plug your iPod into it.
Yeah.
It's got a headphone socket, so you can listen to it when somebody else is trying to sleep next to you in bed. And Chris says, I have a Wi-Fi radio which is great, $39.99 in PC World.
That's very cheap. I wonder what make it is.
Yeah, keep the information coming, Chris. But Play Radio could do with making their content a bit more like the BBC. Fuck off.
I think you need to read the next sentence.
Oh, on-demand content, so that I can listen to this show after the event. Oh, we got that, Chris. It was called podcasting. Although somebody asked me today to explain that podcasting is not just podcasting, where you send the recording of something to somebody's iPod. It's also like a live download that you can do later.
Yeah. I didn't think that that's what he meant, actually. Do you think that's what he means? Because I understood that message from Chris to mean that he actually wants more sort of like current affairs stuff, as you know, after it's happening, as it's happening.
No, you've misunderstood it.
Because he's saying content on demand.
Making their content. He says, I'll read the email again.
Making their
it's
content.
A Skype message. Oh, that's the other thing. If you sign up to Skype, you can message in, which is no different, frankly, from emailing. But then we can have a live chat with you. Yeah, well, Skype him back and ask him what the hell he meant. You know,
he's
tell him he's been listening to the
content.
BBC for too long because he can't express himself. He's got no communication skills. I'm sorry, Chris Turner. It's FIFA who's me off, not you. I understand Chris is saying that Chris wishes that our content was on demand so that he can listen to this show after the event. Then again, possibly Chris is Christine, so I'm confused. But I think that means Chris is talking about our podcast ability, which, as I understand it, is 110%. If he's talking about us talking about Iraq or the recession, a word which has been banned, apparently, by the BBC, they sent out a verbal request to journalists saying, can you not pepper all your reports with the word recession? You know, it was even infiltrating sport. People were saying things like, as Chelsea FC consider, the January transfer window, even they will have to be concerned about the coming recession. And so the number of mentions of recession on the BBC, according to one source, has gone down from 1,800 a week, the week before last, to about 170 last week, which I think is a bit more realistic, isn't it? However, if he's talking, he's replied very quickly. Well done. He says, podcasting is not quite like that, i.e. on the BBC, I can listen again.
So he means he can click listen again straight away after the show has finished.
Oh,
and
I see.
he can listen to it straight away.
Right. Why do that? Well, why not just listen to the bloody thing? People want everything, don't they? It's like that Simpsons sketch, which I love. They go into a fast food restaurant and Homer orders the instant hamburger. And the waiter says, that'll be with you, sir, in 30 seconds. And Homer moans, oh, I want it now. I want society, Chris, for goodness sake. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for your Skype message.
Not to listen to edited highlights like most podcasts, which I can do from my Logic Wi-Fi radio.
All right. Well, we'll have to set up another department at Play Radio UK.
But we do,
It's getting like Whitehall along the road from here, you know?
But it's not edited highlights, is it?
What?
It's not edited highlights.
No. We split the show into two. The first section is the first 2.5 hours show of the show. And there's Let It There. I did live.
Yeah.
I took out the word of to save time. Who needs the small words? The second part, 1.5 minutes long. Now, I'm going to catch up with some important messages. I would like everybody listening to buy everything that we're about to talk about, and then we'll be back regrouped and ready to go again, refreshed.
PlayRadioUK.com is offering you the chance to get your hands on rock, metal and punk t-shirts plus other band merchandise from just £11.95. Also includes free UK shipping. For more details, click on the Loud Clothing banner at PlayRadioUK.com.
My dad knows how to keep my mum sweet. He logged on to Play Radio UK and treated her to some amazing Swarovski jewellery from the Scala Jewellery. My mum's so lucky because the Scala Jewellery designed all their jewellery in the UK, and then it's handmade in Italy with Swarovski stones. They design jewellery for celebrities and royalty too. It's probably the best costume jewellery in the world. So come on all you dads, go to playradiouk.com and click on the Scala Jewellery today.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
It's 9:05, very nearly, UK time. Good day around the world, and hello and welcome to another glorious summer morning if you've podcast us. Apparently lots of people are just catching up, which is cool. Packed programme talking about cloning because the Japanese have taken the cells of a dead mouse that's been dead for 16 years, and they've managed to recreate it by cloning it and putting it inside a mummy mouse, and the mummy mouse then gives birth to that mouse that was alive 16 years ago. What fun. And it just makes you wonder, doesn't it, when, or maybe they already have, with a human being. Jan Creamer will be along, Chief Executive of the National Anti-Vivisection Society, to discuss the animal rights position here. So we'll be having a good old argument in about 25 minutes. I wouldn't be at all surprised. We're talking sex and the arts with Catherine Catt, our arts correspondent, whose day job is a full-time hooker. We're going to be letting her run her sensual fingers over the problems faced by one listener who wishes he was a woman's footstool, another who wants his ladies covered in pie, and a third who is attracted to trees, and I'm particularly looking forward to that one. And Andy's headache this evening. Andy Wise each week has a headache, And this week, his headache is this, good listener. Has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? Has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? Andy's weekly headache. You can Skype play.radio.uk, email studio@playradiouk.com, the switchboard number 01243 55 60 60. And Alan, you were wrong about Barack Obama.
Good evening, Tommy.
Good evening, Alan.
Well, it was a bit of a foregone conclusion, wasn't it, mate?
Yes.
Well, he was the bookie's favourite to win.
Yes.
And I made to put a bet on Thursday for Barack Obama. Offered that odds of even money, and I put about 20 quid on it, so I was nice, tidy off.
Where did you get evens on Barack Obama?
On the exchanges.
No, you didn't.
I did, Tommy, I did.
It was 1.07 on the exchanges, my sweet petal. Fantasist.
Careful, Tommy. You're going to the very soft side.
1.07 on the exchanges is not evens.
Well, it's better than 9 to 4 at the bookies.
What?
Better than 9 to 4 at the bookies.
All
and I'm
right.
thinking from a quiz night here to argue with you about it.
No, okay.
And my team is, I knew Barack Obama would get it.
Yes, and he did.
Yeah, so I'm glad change has come to America. Because after 8 years of Republican misery, it's good to see the Democrats in the White House again.
I think it's a bandwagon you're climbing on there. George W. Bush has been a fine president.
No, he's a warmonger.
He isn't a warmonger. Saddam was a bloody warmonger.
No, Obama's going to be the next Clinton.
Say that bit again.
Obama's going to be the next Clinton.
Go back to what you were saying. George W. Bush wasn't a warmonger. Saddam was a warmonger. He fought a war with Iran for 8 years, which cost the lives of millions. And then when that was done, he invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
He gassed his own people, the Kurds. If anyone was behaving like that at the end of your street, and some bloke came out of his living room and thumped him, you'd say, good job, well done, fella. But when it's George W. Bush, because all the trendy lefties are giving him a hard time, you're happy to hide behind their coattails and say, Yabu sucks George W. Bush, but history will paint him as a hero.
Well, only because Al-Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center on 9/11. If that never happened, we wouldn't have had this mess in Iraq.
Yes, we would, because it was the right thing to do. 9/11, irregardless.
And would you say Tony Blair was a warmonger? And
No.
Maggie Thatcher and John Major?
John Major, no, he didn't get involved in any wars. John Major
He did, he got involved the first time.
John Major stopped wars.
What about Maggie Thatcher and the Falklands?
She was a warmonger, for sure. And Falklands did for her what the recession is going to do for Gordon Brown. They'll come up smelling of roses.
Well, we know we have change in America. I think it's about time we had change in Britain with Nick Clegg as the next Prime Minister.
That's extremely unlikely.
Well, stranger things have happened, Tommy.
No, they haven't. Name one.
You getting a job on CITV.
That was a bit weird, wasn't it? But Nick Clegg being Prime Minister would be even weirder than that.
Well, remember the last time we had a Liberal government? In the days of Lloyd George, when millions of people sacrificed themselves in World War One.
Yes, what a
noble... We mustn't forget our honoured dead. We must pay our respects to them tomorrow.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much indeed. Alan, for a little roundup, really, of opinions there. 9:10 the time. We haven't yet had any insight or assistance with Andy's headache. Has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? He asks this question. This is his headache at the moment, because today he was wondering about buying a helicopter. When he heard that because of the flooding across the United Kingdom, people's electric gates are likely to be inoperable. So he found himself wondering about getting a helicopter.
Okay.
So he looked up some helicopters and found that the average price, even for a poxy little one that looked like a mosquito's older brother, is about $180,000. which is more than a Bentley.
Yeah.
Or you rather have a poxy little helicopter or a Bentley?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'd rather have a helicopter.
Oh, I thought the clue was in the intonation there. Never mind. This from Darcy Sato, who has emailed ahead of Catherine Catt, our arts correspondent and full-time hooker, who will be here talking about the arts and fetishes. He says, Darcy, my kink is slightly coy blondes. No, you've obviously missed this. This is a fairly subtle pitch at yourself. Oh, you did catch that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. No, there you
I was just being coy.
No, you're doing tumbleweed.
I know.
And this from Mick. It says, don't read this out. So, we aim to please. Yeah. Chris D. in Huddersfield says, hi, guys. I notice you have a new website at Play Radio. We do. And I like it. I like it a lot. Have you not?
No.
Yeah. It's an all-new website.
When did that start then? Today?
I think it started Monday.
That's today then.
He says, being a Mac user, it was easy to find the listen feature, then the advanced listen. Now I can't find it, but I have a saved version of the old web page, which I had to find in order to listen tonight. Can you suggest where this page is on the new site and why it has changed? Chris D. Huddersfield. I'll tell you what I will do, because I have a fine working relationship with Jamie, who is our website webmeister, they call them, don't they? Is that right, the term?
Yeah.
Webmeister? Mm-hmm. A head honcho. He is the big cheese of our website. The number one.
Mm-hmm.
El hombre grande.
So he's saying it was easy to find the listen feature.
I'll forward it to Jamie is what I'll do. I'll forward the email to Jamie whilst I'm also reading out this email from Stephen Freestone, who says, can I say 2 swear words tonight, please? John Gaunt, he says. What's that with? Is that reference something I don't know about? John Gaunt, the former BBC local radio breakfast host with 2CR, 2 Counties Radio, serving Luton and Beds. And, of course, more recently, Talk Sport's Mid-Morning Man, and one of the voices of The Sun. Has he sworn and got into trouble or something?
Oh, I don't think so. He obviously
he just doesn't. Oh, fair enough. That's fine. That's absolutely fair enough. Email from Tamsin Vincent says, Dear Tommy Radio. It's all right, I'm not going to talk about Jonathan, she says. Anyway, I heard you talking about local radio and doing a feature for it next week. Please, 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 can I join in? This is what we're asking for. Listeners who are prepared to spend a few minutes dipping into their local radio stations and sending me an email, a couple of paragraphs, fantastic, or if you want, less than that, would be a bit perfunctory. Another long word beginning with P there. What is going on? On local radio. It can be your BBC local radio station, it can be your commercial local radio station, it can be your regional radio station, which is just a local radio station that likes to think it's bigger than being a local radio station, really. It's a regional one. And get them to me by next Monday, preferably towards the end of this week. Email studio@playradiouk.com.
Can I suggest they actually email you?
I was about to say that.
Okay.
How very symbiotic. Or you can email me direct at tommy@playradiouk.com.
But don't use that email address during this show.
No.
No.
We'll get the weather in just a second, but first to finish Tamsin's email, I listen to a lot of local radio and I would love to review it and explain why I listen. My credentials, she says. My parents had to buy me a radio when I was aged 6. I was totally hooked, and I have been ever since. Kinks. I heard you earlier talking about showers. Well, sometimes when I'm in the shower... No, Tamsin. That was a different type of shower. was on about. Okay. Anyway, she says, when I'm in the shower, suddenly Colin Firth. Well, anyway, Colin comes in to mend his shirt, which is a bit ripped. Okay, it may have been me. Anyway, we end up deciding that the shirt does not really matter, and then, sorry about that. So we'll talk women's fantasies as well with Catherine Catt, I think. Would be a good thing, don't you?
Definitely.
Fantastic.
We've had a couple of reactions to the John Galt thing, if you watch.
Okay. All right, we've got Stephen on the line. Stephen.
No, he's not.
Oh, he's not on the line? No,
no, he's just reacted to the John...
okay. Here, Stephen Parker says, using Skype, John Gaunt is the guy that replaced Dickin after his death. He is said to be a very annoying high-pitched voice. Have a very annoying high-pitched voice. I don't mind him myself. The problem is that he is Mike Dickin's replacement, and he doesn't touch the Dickster. I don't think that's the case. I think that when Mike Dickin passed away in a road traffic accident down in his native West Country, I think John Gaunt had long been doing the mid-morning show on Talk Sport.
Right.
And Mike was doing something along the lines of late evening weekends. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought he was.
Something like that.
And Fat Steve has also...
Fat Steve has Skyped. It's play.radio.uk, the Skype address. He says, called someone a Nazi, according to The Guardian. John Wayne was a Nazi, adds Steve.
So
John Gaunt's in trouble.
Sounds like it.
Okay. John Wayne was a Nazi, according to Steve. Well, now, Steve, first thing here, you would not say that to his face. Because actually, to say anything to John Wayne's face, the average man would have to stand on a fairly tall box. Do you like John Wayne? Or do you, Fiona, does he leave you cold?
Indifferent, really.
His politics were grotesque, but then he lived in the bubble that was Hollywood, so he had no idea what was going on in the real world. So forget his views. Jimmy Stewart was also apparently completely and utterly rabidly right-wing. And I can remember Wogan or somebody asking Tom Hanks, assuming that Tom Hanks was a liberal because there's something liberal about Tom Hanks, asking Tom Hanks in an implied way to condemn capital punishment. And I remember during the interview, Hanks just looked at him. It was on TV, it was live. Hanks just looked at him as if he asked him the most ridiculous thing. You know, of course you want to electrocute murderers, he kind of came back with. So, of course, what's rabidly right-wing in this country, and maybe to liberals like Steve in Atlanta, is just slightly right of centre.
Yeah.
You know, sort of where David Cameron is, if you like, in this country. But John Wayne, you should forget about his political views. He was the most fantastic actor. And an even more fantastic presence.
Really? I think he's really tall, was he?
He was 6'4".
Okay.
About 16, 17 stone. And it was all meat. And it wasn't muscle, it was just beef.
Right.
But he had these little funny legs. And he had this funny walk, which was slightly mincing. And he used to roll a little bit as he walked in his cowboy boots. And so one of his nicknames was the Big Leggy. Have you never heard that song, John Wayne is Big Leggy?
No.
No. Well, you see, you're too young. We had some great songs when I was a boy. Gaunt called a councillor a Nazi. This is from Fat Steve. Isn't it incredible when you get news about your own country and indeed the sort of minutiae of another radio station from a guy in Atlanta?
Yeah. I still don't quite understand the story, though.
Gaunt called a councillor a Nazi, and then Steve goes on, well, he is dead. Don't know. Maybe, shall we research that? Whilst we're after we've got the weather?
Definitely.
We'll do that. And then a reminder that at 10 o'clock, Catherine Catt will be here. Now, Catherine Catt, we interviewed in her capacity as a representative of the sex workers of the United Kingdom. And during the course of the conversation, it became apparent that she had a deep knowledge and love of the arts. So we appointed her our arts correspondent on the show. And every Monday at 10 o'clock, she runs through some of the exhibitions, opera, ballet, film. She went to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant and did a review of that, which was cool, because there's a kind of art about that kind of gastronomy, isn't there? But as an add-on today, we're going to be asking her to field some questions about listeners' kinks. So if you have a slight kink yourself, or indeed a full-blown fetish, what we're saying is there's nobody who's pure missionary. Twice a week, in the bedroom, him on top of her.
Twice a week.
If she gets on top of him, or they do it in the kitchen, we're already into a slight kink here. It's not a full-blown fetish, but it's a kink. And what's that Woody Allen joke about? A feather is kinky. What's the difference between a fetish and a perversion?
Go on.
No, what's the difference between kinky and a perversion?
I don't know.
A feather is kinky. The whole chicken, that's perverted.
Play 2 UK. Headlines.
Oh, the headlines, yeah. This one. As you were. I thought it was the weather. It
said headlines.
Headlines. VAT could be slashed and possibly income tax could be reduced to encourage us to spend our way out of the recession. Pressure's mounting on the Chancellor to announce a 5.5% cut in his pre-budget report of VAT, possibly next week. The global financial crisis will top the agenda when Barack Obama and his wife Michelle go to the Oval Office to have a look around their new home, and 23 flood warnings are in place across the UK this evening. The Midlands and South West are thought to be at the highest risk after several days of torrential rain and high winds.
Play 2 UK. Weather.
Heavy rain and strong winds in the southeast will clear during the evening. Many central and eastern parts will then have a dry night. The north and west will be windy with heavy showers. Gales are likely in southwest Scotland. Looking on to tomorrow, a windy day with gales in northwest England and Northern Ireland. Sunny spells, but also occasional showers with a longer spell of heavy rain for northwest England and Northern Ireland.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK.
Something is in your area now and ready to change the way you pay for your phone and broadband. Choose from our range of phone and broadband packages from just $14.99 a month, including line rental, inclusive evening and weekend calls to landlines, and up to 2 meg broadband, all for one credit crunch beating monthly fee. Add to this Something's fantastic range of TV and radio packages, you really have got something for everyone. Find out more by calling 0871 664 1500 or go to www.something.info.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, the original cunning linguist.
Fiona's found the John Gaunt story. Well done. Outspoken radio talk show host John Gaunt has been suspended for calling a Tory councillor a Nazi live on air. This is how it's reported in The Guardian. Am I right?
Oh, that's the Mirror.
The Mirror. TalkSport's Gaunt accused Councillor Michael Stark of being a Nazi and an ignorant pig during a discussion about Redbridge Council's ban on smokers becoming foster parents. Gaunt, who was in care as a child, launched his attack on Councillor Stark as he attempted to justify the decision, explaining that children's welfare should be put ahead of the needs of foster families. It goes on, perhaps realising his error, Gaunt attempted to soften the blow by then calling Councillor Stark a health Nazi. So it's not clear here whether he called him a Nazi and then tried to soften it by saying health Nazi. Furious radio bosses forced Gaunt to make an on-air apology to Councillor Stark at the end of the show on Friday and have since suspended him pending a full investigation. Now, you be careful. I don't want to in any way link you, dear caller, with any of our historical enemies.
Well, funny enough, I wanted to talk to you about counterfactual historical stuff. Said you're a fan of it. I never knew you answered the phone there, Tom.
Say again?
Hello?
What?
I never knew. I would like to mention that I'm a superior handpiece this week, a Dialatron from 1991, and unparalleled scientific telephonic receiving. Are you there?
I'm following you slow. I'm following you, but I'm about 3 feet behind.
Right then, I am not what you call an agenda setter. It's fucking too late now. Are you there?
Yeah, no. What? There it is. So, just to reposition then, we're getting reports that the Hare Krishnas are due to split due to musical differences. The argument came about over whether to add a third note to their one and only song. To clone or not to clone, that's what we're discussing today. I hope that's not him back. Is that you back again? What? No. Good. Because we're standing by to talk to Jan Creamer, who is Chief Executive of the National Anti-Vivisection Society, to discuss the animal rights position here. We've been talking about a successful experiment carried out in Kobe, Japan, where at the Centre for Developmental Biology, scientists took brain cells from a dead male mouse that had been dead for 16 years. How long ago is that? Who was number one when this mouse died?
Well, 16 years ago, early
92.
90s, isn't it? Ooh,
92? Who was number one?
Spice Girls, probably. No, they're
Was
a
it?
bit early for Spice Girls, isn't it?
So this mouse is going to be quite confused, isn't he, when he comes across the Kaiser Chiefs, for example. What? And who was in power? John Major. So John Major was in power.
Mm-hmm.
The Premier League was only just starting up. I think you'll find that Nottingham Forest were in the First Division. That will give you some idea of how long ago this was. This mouse is going to be so confused.
Weren't we in recession then?
We were, so at least the mouse is not going to suffer, okay, from over-borrowing. Because he died cheeseless. Cheeseless came he into the world the first time, and cheeseless was he the second time.
And his little nest had been repossessed.
Yes.
Mm.
But do you think, I mean, this cloned mouse, will he have the memories of... We won't obviously have memories of the Spice Girls and John Major, but whatever was current in his life. Supposing the thing in his life, okay, was that the skirting board had just been painted.
It's not the same mouse.
It is.
It's
been
not.
cloned.
It's not the same mouse,
No, but it's got the same body and mind. And therefore, it's got the same memories. Surely. This is what we don't know.
But mind?
This is what we don't know.
Yeah, you see, we had this discussion last week, didn't we? If you got a set of twins, identical twins, they are identical, aren't they? In every way, apart from surely their minds. Aren't their minds unique to them?
Well, so are their willies. I mean, no. But this is not the same as cloning. Twins are not the same as cloning.
No, I know they're not.
In any case, they've done some fantastic research with identical twins, which we'll come back to after we've done two things. First of all, let me get to this Skype message, which has come in from Oscar. Oscar, thank you for this. Oscar says, John Gaunt has been suspended from his TalkSport show for the reasons stated following a number of complaints from listeners who probably, in fact, never heard it. If he ends up being dismissed, would Play Radio UK consider offering him a show as they did with Whale? I can't see how we could avoid it. What? Is that you again?
Yes.
What happened the first time?
Well, the first time, really honestly, I wasn't being a smart ass. I'm going to have to move into another room because I can hear you on my internet feed.
That's okay, because we're about to interview an anti-vivisectionist.
Again?
Yes.
Bloody hell.
I know.
What?
It's like radio, isn't it?
But they're cutting up now.
It's like...
Oh, they're anti.
No, we're not cutting anything up. This is the point. This is the opposite of vivisection.
Don't like it.
No, we're putting things back together again.
All right, then.
This has
Well,
got
have you got
nothing
any
to do
time
with
for me
vivisection.
after you sorted this out with everybody
What?
in the studio? Would you have any time for me to put a question to the listeners, to the audience, as the winter has come upon us now and
Go on, then.
sad?
Yes, go on.
You've not been a mustachioed man, you've always been what you call a smooth man, haven't you?
I am an smooth man, yes.
And smooth man. Have you been tempted? Because I am growing a mustachioed, and I know you have homosexual listeners. And, well, not listeners, but contributors, as you call them.
Yes.
And I would like to say, is there any chance propositioned, is all I would like to ask. In between the vivisection and the body mass index.
All right.
I tell you what, can you email me a picture?
No.
If I could email, I'd be...
You'd be an emailer.
better off than I am now.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that. We will indeed put that question out there. Is it possible to wear a moustache and for people not to assume that you are on the run from the village people? 01243 55 60 60. And just for your delectation, this from... I think the guy's name is Dave.
OK, let's get to straight away to our first dedication. Dear Chris, please say a big hello to Connie Lingers, who's 69 on Tuesday. She'll be enjoying my meat and 2 veg on Sunday at 12, which are all the very best, and tell her I look forward to seeing her when she comes. Thanks ever so much, says Ivan Ardon. And he says, please say hello to Bill as well. And that comes from Ivan going out to Connie in Thurmby Lodge here in Leicestershire.
Hello, Clive Connor here with Music and Memories. Our theme for this week is Come, spelt C-O-M-E. But to start the programme, we have an entirely different spelling of that word, because it's Tommy Handley singing Come, Pretty One, Come.
Oh, so numb, a big fat girl said as she dived off my dome. Come, pretty one, come, pretty one, come, 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 come. Come, 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 come.
That's...
Come, pretty one, come, pretty one.
One of the great all-round family entertainers, Tommy Hanley, there on the Clive Tarmer Show from Radio Merseyside. Talking earlier with Professor Malcolm Allison, Professor of STEM Biology from Barts and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry, about research carried out at the Centre for Developmental Biology in Kobe, Japan, where they took brain cells from a dead male mouse that had been dead for 16 years and managed to clone it. We were wondering what would have been going on 16 years ago when the mouse was cloned. Steve in Atlanta says that we were at war with Iraq the first time when the mouse was frozen, so there'll be no great culture shock there. And thanks to G-Man, who says that number ones in 1992 included Wet, Wet, Wet's Good Night Girl, Shakespeare's Sister and Stay, Snap, Rhythm is a Dancer, and Charles and Eddie, Would I Lie to You? Jan Creamer joins us for some sanity in all of this. Hello, Jan.
Good evening, Toy.
Chief Executive of the National Anti-Vivisection Society, to perhaps discuss with us the animal rights position here. The mouse can't mind. I mean, it wouldn't have existed if it hadn't been for this piece of science.
I think, given the choice, the mouse certainly wouldn't want to be part of this piece of science. I mean, I think that the point of view that we hold at the NEVS is similar to a lot of extremely concerned scientists. I mean, it's not clear that the animals that are being produced in these programs will actually be fit to survive, because there are great concerns about genetic damage, and that it could take thousands of years for animals to recover from genetic bottlenecks like this kind of thing would create. I think it's rather spurious for them to say, well, we might be able to bring back woolly mammoths and things like that. I think that it's better for us to stop damaging the environment and preserve the environment and the species we have now, rather than go about it the other way round and make other animals suffer to create something which scientifically many are concerned about. I mean, that cloning actually jeopardizes the whole genome. So something that looks normal can actually have an underlying defect. And this is what many scientists are concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, without getting into genetic bottlenecks, because I have no idea what that might possibly mean, I don't think it's an either-or, that you either save the planet or engage in medical research. I'm sure you can do both. So people who want to save the planet, great, go ahead. We're all with you. But people who want to advance medical science, with an element of caution, an amber light always shining on what they're doing, we have to be with that. Otherwise, for example, Jan, you might not be here now. Well, because medical science has advanced so wonderfully well. I don't know what age you are, but 400 years ago, you'd have been dead at 32. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing is that it's not that clear-cut. It's certainly not a case of either-or. I mean, our organisation funds non-animal scientific and medical research, so we're very behind medical research. But what we're behind is the right kind of well-thought-out, intelligent medical research using advanced technologies, and certainly not this kind of thing where basically these scientists have no idea how they're going to use the information they're finding. They're just throwing out random ideas of how this could possibly be of use in the future. And yet you've got someone like Ian Wilmot, the creator of Dolly the sheep, the first animal clone from an adult cell, who says that if you were to do this with children, cloned children would be severely handicapped. There'd be lots of stillbirths, there'd be late abortions, and the children would suffer terribly. So it's not just organisations like ours who are concerned about this, but it's scientists themselves who know that cloning animals means that you've got problems within the DNA, the genetic code, that could cause unforeseen problems in future. And certainly these animals live a shorter lifespan. The animals who are used in these programs to produce cloned animals, the young suffer a whole range of abnormalities. They die early. There are higher birth weights, which cause problems for the mothers when they're actually giving birth. The females, the mothers, suffer repeated surgeries, repeated egg collection, implantations. So these animals are in severely barren and sterile environments, and they're suffering repeated surgeries. There's a lot of suffering that goes on in this whole process of cloning animals. And only 2 to 5% of the animals produced turn out to be reasonably healthy. During this particular program, 500 of the fetuses died. They used 1,100 implantations in order to get 7 healthy animals. So there's a lot of suffering involved here.
Yeah, I mean, let's go right to the heart of this. What you're saying is that when you clone an animal, in the way that they're only able to do it at the moment, there's almost certainly going to be some kind of suffering, if that's only a less than normal lifespan, but it could be even worse for the animal that's cloned, but there is some element of unpleasantness, possibly suffering, that has to be endured by the animals that are going to carry the unborn cloned animal.
Yes, most certainly.
Okay, but it is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we just don't know how this could turn out. We don't know how much human and animal suffering this experimentation might generate.
But then you're weighing that against the actual suffering that we know it's causing now. And you've got a whole range of scientists who are not people outside of this particular field, but people actually inside this field, and certainly people like Ian Wilmot, saying that they realise that the cloning process itself, creating the cloned animal, the process itself causes suffering to the animals who are used to create the new animals, and the new animals tend to suffer from health problems themselves.
Yeah, we got that. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've definitely got... Your point is inviolate. The point you're making is magnificent. There clearly is something wrong with the animals that are cloned at the moment, and it's unsatisfactory that the creatures that are having to carry these cloned animals are going to be living such artificial lives. They're going to be deprived of so many natural things. Agreed. Definitely, you're right. But because there's this, a lot of people will think that because there's this sneaking possibility that this kind of research might well lead to some enormous benefits for mankind, and agreed. Nobody is even slightly sure what they might be at the moment. That this unacceptable, but compared to some things, minimal amount of suffering is possibly worth putting a tick against.
Well, we certainly wouldn't agree with that. But, where would you actually draw the line, Tommy? For this promise that there might be
No,
some
there's no
benefit in
promise.
future.
No, I'm not saying there's a promise. There isn't a promise. There's a possibility. Different. And I don't know how long a shot it is. But I will say that you can't help but be astonished that an animal that's been dead 16 years can, in a sense, be reproduced or brought to life. Dead, remember, not a sperm donor, which is a different thing.
Yeah.
But this is extraordinary. And it seems to me, and I'd like to think I care about living things as much as you do. I'd like to think that, and everybody listening would. But I'm simply bedazzled, mesmerised, enormously impressed with what's happened so far, and it won't leave me that a lot of the human and animal suffering that goes on in the world might, and I don't know how long a shot it is, might be alleviated or even done away with by this kind of research.
The thing is, we don't need to do this. We don't need to make animals suffer in this way. We don't need to make either the animals that are involved in production of the babies suffer or the offspring themselves. You know, there are other ways of conducting scientific and medical research.
Not cloning, which is what we're talking about.
Sorry?
Not cloning. This is the only way to do this.
The whole point about cloning, certainly in this sphere, is it's being done out of curiosity, but
no,
people
it's
pull
possible.
the wings off flies.
Whoa! Bollocks! Don't be so absurd, please. They're not deliberately torturing for schoolboy pleasure. That simply is unfair.
Well,
wasn't it?
It's this. No, I don't
yes,
think it is.
Yes, it is. No.
It's on a continuum. This continuous.
No, look, be passionate, but let's stay objective, and let's not be over emotive. I don't believe there's another way of cloning. You said that there was. You're talking about you're talking at the moment off subject, which is the wider issue of vivisection. Here we're talking cloning. I don't think there is another way
the whole point
of doing this.
The whole reason for saying that they're doing this cloning is for the benefit of medical research. That's the promise that's being given to people, is that just let us do this, and sometime in the future we might come up with some kind of cure for a disease. You know, this is very random what they're doing. It's like I said at the beginning, they don't really have any idea how they're going to apply this. They don't really know where they're going with it.
No, but when Fleming put the Petri dish on the windowsill and discovered penicillin because a spore flew onto it, it was 20 years before they knew what good it could do. That's how things are. The medical world is random, and science does have to acquire information.
It certainly doesn't justify the kind of suffering that is involved in this cloning when you've already got not only people like ourselves expressing concern about it and saying that there are other ways of conducting research.
Which ways are there? Look, you keep saying that. Jan, you keep saying there are other ways of doing this kind of research. What are the other ways of doing cloning research?
No, I'm talking about medical research. You're quite right. I'm absolutely talking about medical research.
Well, you're off message, because we're talking about cloning here.
I'm talking about their end point.
Just stick with cloning, please. Just stick with cloning.
Their reason for doing this, they're saying, is for medical advances.
Right, look, can we just clear the lines here? We're talking about cloning, not your broad work at the National Anti-Vivisection Society, which is magnificent, just cloning. You're muddying the thing by saying that there are other ways of doing this. There aren't. Not cloning.
I'm saying there are other ways of conducting scientific research, and I wasn't talking about cloning. And
well, then stick
I
to
made
cloning.
that quite clear in what I said.
Yeah, but we're talking about cloning and only cloning tonight,
no,
please.
You're saying this is justified.
No, I'm saying we're talking about
sometime
cloning.
in the future.
No, Jan, can let's keep the lines clear, please,
It could
please.
be justified because sometime in the future there might be some medical advance. What I'm saying to you is, this is not the way.
Can I ask you,
Jan? We
Jan?
don't need to do this.
Let me put my own points, okay? Don't try and rephrase what I'm saying. That's preposterous. What I'm saying is that we're talking about cloning tonight, not the broad spectrum of your wonderful work at the Society, just cloning. Tossing in the fact that it can be done other ways, that belongs in a different argument. Just cloning, there is no other way of this kind of experimentation taking place. Because of that, because there's no other way to do this, and because we're talking about a type of suffering which will seem to a lot of people to be a lesser suffering than is done by what we understand vivisection to be, which is medical experiments on non-anaesthetised animals, that's how we, the unwashed, understand it, because the level of suffering appears to be less than that, and because the possible benefits are so great, you've got work on your hands, I think, opposing this one.
Well, I don't agree at all. You've just cited there yet again that the justification for doing this is that there might be possible benefits. That's exactly the point I'm replying to when I say this isn't the way to look for those possible benefits. There are other ways. I mean, if you want to talk about cloning itself, I think you only have to look at the response of people from within that sector in science, people who have been involved in creating cloned animals, and there are serious concerns about the effect on the DNA and the fact that these animals could appear normal but actually be carrying severe defects. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that we can only talk about cloning on its own because there are possible benefits, but we can't talk about, well, what would we do for scientific research without cloning?
Jan, please. I'm not saying you should talk about cloning on its own because there might be benefits. We're talking about cloning on its own because that's the subject. Are you with me? That's the topic. Nothing else. Okay,
the
cloning.
The justification.
And when you say that at the moment there are DNA problems, genetic problems, the cloned creatures do not appear to have a normal lifespan and may indeed suffer during this strange and unnatural life that they're condemned to, that's absolutely valid. You're right. You're dead right. Nobody will. Well, you hate that idea, and I'm with you. I agree. That's awful. That's a terrible, terrible thing. But, of course, whenever you start a project, mistakes are made. Thankfully, they're not usually made with animal lives. But those mistakes, once they're made, can be identified and possibly rectified. That's the nature of research and development, for which we all have to give thanks. So the rest of us who don't have a predisposed position on anything to do with animals that isn't absolutely natural, the rest of us have to weigh all these things up. And I'm not convinced that you've got a huge case yet for saying no to cloning, or for persuading the rest of us to say no to cloning just yet.
Well, certainly what we're saying is that the cost to the animals doesn't justify what's being done, and the science doesn't justify what's being done. That's the point that I'm making. That's why I'm saying that, you know, you've got a couple of scientists here throwing out all kinds of potential benefits, such as some kind of medical benefit sometime in the future, or maybe we can save some endangered species. You know, that is not a good enough justification for the kind of suffering that they are inflicting.
Okay. Well, I do think you've got a hard... the bulk of your fine work, your organisation, and we all salute you, it stands absolutely... you cannot criticise the thing. I don't believe, personally, this is a personal view, I don't believe anybody can criticise anything that the National Anti-Vivisection Society stands for and campaigns on behalf of. But I think what we've discovered this evening is that there's a way to go to actually cross all the T's, and for that matter, the lowercase f's, on the argument against cloning. But your heart's in the right place, and we salute you, and I'm grateful for your time this evening, Jan Creamer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Oh, in comes Fiona with a Red Bull. I hope I wasn't harsh on your friend Jan Creamer from the National Anti-Vivisection Society. But I thought she was making turn 2 into 5 there a little bit. What did you think?
Well, I could see where she was coming from, because you were saying that although we were talking about cloning, the point of cloning is...
What?
Don't look at me like that.
I didn't look at anything. I'm drinking Red Bull. Whenever I drink Red Bull, I get a bit of a buzz. That's the idea.
It is.
Is there vodka in this? I hope not. But anyway, where were we?
No, the point of cloning is... The interest in cloning is where it might lead to in terms of possible benefits.
Shall I tell you, as a bloke...
Okay, go on.
Besides that,
Uh-huh.
I'm just as for cloning because it's fascinating.
But you don't have to be a bloke. I find it all very fascinating.
Okay, then.
What
But
I
it's
find really, really frightening, though, is the thought that I could actually potentially give birth to myself.
Yeah.
That is very, very odd.
I know. And the interesting thing is, if you'd only live half the life span, in other words, supposing you'd get to live to be 100, right?
Yeah.
And you have yourself when you're 50.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. I know. Pre-hysterectomy. All right. 40. Then you will catch yourself up at around about 75. There'll be 2 75-year-old Fionas.
Yeah.
Because the cloned one has got 40 years to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's going to age twice as quickly as you...
Yeah.
And I know, of course, that I'm being very simplistic, and that the ageing process we're talking about is not a normal ageing process, but it's just a deterioration of, the essential organs and faculties, probably.
Yeah.
But I'm for it. Well,
you can't help.
I'm going to be honest and say that I probably the main reason I'm for it is because it's interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to a woolly mammoth. So help me I am. So help me I am. They only died out about 10,000 years ago, you know.
Really?
They're not prehistoric. They're not dinosaurs or anything. And I think man hunted them to extinction. You see, so primitive man they didn't have a Duke of Edinburgh then. So, shoot as many as you like, but don't shoot the last one. It's basically his position, isn't it?
Right.
So anyway, so there's cloning, and I think we've done that, and we've done it well. And I enjoyed talking to Professor Malcolm Allison. Steve in Atlanta and myself interviewed him. And then Jan Creamer, Chief Executive of the National Anti-Vivisection Society.
And we really, really need to take a break.
Do we?
Yes.
Love film? Then you'll love PlayRadioUK.com with low prices on Blu-ray DVDs. There's also 40% off and save on DVDs under $5. Just click on the lovefilm.com banner at PlayRadioUK.com. Tommy Boys on Play 2 UK, a soup song of sanctity in a weird and wacky world.
Play Radio UK, Tommy Boyd Show. Fiona is here. It's 6 minutes to 10 UK time PM, of course. Good day if you're listening elsewhere on the planet Earth. And hi if you're podcasting. Reminder that if you are podcasting, you can still get back to me with any thoughts on anything that is being said on the programme. It might be almost a historical document, but Tommy at playradiouk.com is my email address. We're taking calls now. If you have a kink and you would like to discuss it with Catherine Catt, who is our arts correspondent and whose day job is that of a hooker. She's a sex worker of some note. She represents men, women, and I was going to say men, probably men as well, but certainly women who are sex workers in Parliament. But I understand it's clear that she is also a very good sex worker herself. So if you would like to email in with any peccadillo of your own, that would be cool. studio@playradiouk.com. You can do a witty one if you want, but at this point, when we're about 5 minutes away from Catherine, it would be good if it was a solid one, a genuine one, which would be nice. I have this for Andy's headache each week. Andy Wise provides us with a headache, something that has just confused his fine mind to the point where he's feeling a little bit migraine-y. And his headache this evening is, has a helicopter ever flown the Atlantic? And I have this from S. Green. It goes, "Hi, Tommy, there is some evidence. I looked up your question. Did a helicopter fly the Atlantic? 25th of July 2008, a Greenlander and a Norwegian flew from the US West Coast to Norway. Pilots from Greenland and Norway landed safely in a Stavanger after they flew from the US West Coast to Norway in a single-engine helicopter. Norwegian Arve Hetland and Johan Hug Hansen from Upernavik landed at Stavanger Airfield Solar on Monday the 21st of July at 2 p.m. According to Helistars, no, they are the first Scandinavians to fly from the American West Coast to Europe in a single-engine helicopter. The pilots usually flew 2 hours at a time, but could be in the air for 5 hours. They carried food, emergency rations, survival gear and flotation devices in the helicopter, and they also carried a gun in case they faced a bear upon landing." How very, very, very Viking of them, really. Isn't it? Hurdy-gurdy.
A bear, not a woolly mammoth.
Yes, a bear, not a woolly mammoth. So thanks for that, and there'll be another Andy's headache at the same time tomorrow night. 5 minutes away from talking to Catherine Catt, our arts correspondent, and whose day job is she's a hooker, and we're going to be talking about her week in the arts and also the fetishes of our listeners. Simon Lake. Simon has emailed, "Enjoying the show as usual. Tell Chris that I have a moustache and have not recently been propositioned by anyone, either male or female." Chris called earlier. He's growing a moustache, and he wonders whether people will think that they can just come up to him and talk to him because he might be gay, was his point.
I guess it depends.
It's a bit old-fashioned, but...
Yeah, I guess it depends sort of what shape the tash is.
What's it like kissing a man with a moustache? Well, hairy. Gotta be odd.
Can't remember, it's been so long.
Got to be odd.
I don't think so. I don't think
No?
it's odd.
No?
Different.
Handsome man with a moustache, can you name one? A man whose moustache looks eminently kissable compared to a naked upper lip. Omar Sharif is probably the last.
Magnum.
Magnum P.I. Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
Fantastic programme. Was he English, that guy with the khaki shorts? He was good, wasn't he? Apparently he was going to be... No, he was going to be Bond, but they wouldn't release him from Magnum.
Really?
You can see Tom Selleck as Bond, can't you?
Yes.
Can you not see him as Bond? Wouldn't he be a fabulous Bond? Good-looking boy.
Yeah.
Who's the best-looking man, do you think, there's ever been?
What, ever?
Yeah, because we've got Marilyn Monroe. That's easy for men.
Oh.
Best-looking man ever.
Oh, God, that's so hard.
Cary Grant was very good-looking. Nope.
You see, I really like Hugh Grant.
He's quite nice, isn't he? But in a very sort of vulnerable way. Bugger.
No, but vulnerable's nice.
Bugger. Bugger.
English accent's nice,
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Okay. Hugh.
It's about as good as you're going to get, I'm afraid.
Well, if that earlier caller who is listening, who suggested that we settle the world's religious differences with a game of golf, then he'll no doubt want to point out that Hugh plays off 7, which is pretty good. Do you have any idea what that means, Fiona? No. Fine.
Could you tell?
Yes. Simon goes on in his email. Thank you for this. If I haven't missed your hooker, perhaps you could ask her what is the strangest kink she has personally come across and which is the most common. And is having sex in Kew Gardens considered a kink? It depends on what with. Doesn't it?
Yes.
Really? Because we do have a listener who's attracted to trees. And he says that Tolkien had the same fetish. Great. Is having sex in Kew Gardens considered a kink, exhibitionism, or merely fun? I think there's a bit more to kinkiness than simply having sex outside of the bedroom. And I class the above as merely a good bit of fun. So thank you for that.
See, some people do get a kick from having sex outdoors, don't they? Al fresco.
Now, that's a bit kinky,
Mm,
isn't it?
yeah,
I think.
I think so.
There's an element of exhibitionism about it. And there are those people who like to have sex in places where they might get caught, like lifts. You read about it. Or in a parked car in a populated area.
I think we're back to dogging again.
No, I'm talking about in the King's Road here.
Are you?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's just strange, isn't it? The little tiny things that actually trigger sexual arousal in people. It might not be the thing that actually sort of produces the full sex act, but just a little thing, little foibles, little things.
Mm.
You know, like, I mean, I'll be honest, I myself find myself attracted to different parts of the female anatomy, which is sort of bottoms first, and faces obviously, and then legs, and then parts of the abdomen, and then, curiously, the nape of the neck just before the ear,
Right.
and most curiously, the underarm bit, but the front bit of the underarm.
Yeah.
Not the back bit. You know the underarm's got two bits of flesh, and there's a
Yeah.
hollow in the middle.
Yeah.
The bit facing forward,
Mhm.
that bit.
Yeah.
So, don't you think it's weird?
Yeah, well.
I'll quickly take this call, and then we will pay the rent, or whatever.
Sven Gunn.
What?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I would like to point out it's not to do with Vanity Tom wearing a moustache. It's... Hello?
Yes?
It's Fiona?
Yes?
It's not to do whether you find me attractive, whether you would like to nuzzle up or any of that.
Isn't it?
No, it's more to do with the price of razors
Ah,
and...
laziness.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Thank you for raising that, Chris, because I do have a way you can cut your shaving bill by about 90% and still be clean-shaven and good-looking, which we'll come to on a future programme.
Does it make you good looking if you're not already good looking?
Yes, it does. Eye-wateringly good-looking.
Wow.
And cut your shaving bill by 90%.
Move over Hugh Grant.
After these coming messages, and I do stress, obey everything that you're told over the next 90 seconds, good listener, otherwise I will come round and seduce your wife. There. And after these important messages, which will be obeyed, we'll be talking to Catherine Catt, our sex worker and arts correspondent.
If you want to increase your profits, go the extra mile for your customers, and bring loyalty to your business, then you need Play in Store. In-house or online, Play in Store is your personal, made-to-measure music and marketing tool. As part of the Play Radio Network, we are experts at creating the perfect radio station for your customers, in turn delivering an increase in sales, staff morale and brand awareness. Go to playinstore.co.uk.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
passiononline.co.uk has something for everybody with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. Click passiononline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Always a massive treat, and now becoming one of the real highlights, not only of the live shows, but also of our podcast library, is Catherine Catt.
Hi.
Hi, sex worker, our arts correspondent, and this evening here to offer advice to any listener from the show who is interested and concerned about their own slight kink or fetish, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. First up, where have you been visiting, looking at, watching, listening to this week?
Well, I've been to see some amazing things. I went to see a dance group, the Mark Morris dance group at the Barbican. Mark Morris is one of my favourite choreographers. His work is incredibly beautiful. And I feel cruel talking about this with such enthusiasm as it's now finished. They've gone back to the States. But the next time these people are in the country, go and see them. I don't care what you have to do to get a ticket. Go and see this dance group. The work they produce is incredibly beautiful. It was a production of Romeo and Juliet, and it was a rediscovered Prokofiev score, so really lush, passionate, romantic music, and great ensemble scenes, really terrific crowd scenes. The company's been together for a long time, and they know each other very, very well. And a lot of the crowd scenes, there's lots of energy, there's lots of patterns in the movement. And one of the things I really, really like about his work is that the movement vocabulary he uses is very, very ordinary. Almost all the moves that you see on stage are moves that I could do. I couldn't do them in that precision and grace and rapidity, but each of the individual movements, it's very human dance. Whereas classical ballet is wonderful, but it is not a dance for ordinary human beings. You know, so really beautiful. Very romantic, very passionate, amazing music, and also some very ugly music. There are some sounds in the score that are really, the body does not want to hear. There are some really unpleasant noises when bad things are happening on stage that really kind of communicates to you very evocatively. And yeah, so it was really wonderful. And I also want to mention the fact that the Barbican call centre staff are just uniformly lovely. A friend of mine was actually mentioning this to me as well. And every time I've called the Barbican, the call centre staff have just been so pleasant and nice. And it's not the kind of thing you expect to be saying about a call centre.
No.
So it's so unusual that I had to mention that.
Fabulous. Okay, so what was that called again, and where was it on?
It was Mark Morris Dance Group at the Barbican, Romeo and Juliet. As I say, they're back in the States now, but they do often tour when they do come over to the UK. They do often tour. Certainly last time they're in Newcastle, they're in Bristol, I think they're in Cardiff and Edinburgh. So they do travel around, and they are so worth seeing. It's really, really beautiful, touching, passionate, intelligent dance.
Beautiful. Don't know how long you can spare with us this evening. We've got some calls coming through from people who want to talk to you about their own preferences. I'm wondering about rattling through the arts review, which is riveting stuff, and then taking those calls, or kind of box and coxing, maybe taking a review about a piece of dance and then taking a call. Which do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a call.
Let's do that then. Let's say good evening to Stephen. Hi, Stephen, you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, you're through to Catherine Catt.
Hi, Stephen. Hello?
Oh, hello.
Are you still there?
I am, yes. I heard myself feeding back a bit there. I got a bit confused. How are you this evening?
I'm fine. I'm good. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, well, I was kind of hoping to discuss the bondage thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Well, I've kind of an interest in this. And, well, very recently something grabbed me by surprise.
Yeah.
I was sort of in the presence of a female friend, and I kind of had this peculiar urge to become her footstool.
That's not entirely uncommon.
And, also the sound of leather and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I found this out when I was, 28. 27, rather.
Yeah.
I'm now 29 now.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought about this before in the same way. And it kind of, other things kind of brought this side to the surface, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm a script writer. And I kind of, when I was writing scripts, I kind of found
Can I just
this
say
was
that
somewhere there. You know?
It's up to you, but I wouldn't share too many identifying details about yourself on the radio talking about something like this for the first time.
Why not?
Because I think your privacy is a very precious thing, and once it's lost, it's difficult to regain.
No, I don't care about it.
Okay, really? That's fine.
Don't want to sound rude or anything. I just, I'm not that bothered. I'm very happy to come out with this.
Yeah, I would just jump in here myself, though, Stephen, and say that I think there are echoes that I agree with in what Catherine is saying. Obviously, you're not going to identify anybody other than yourself, and whether you've given us your real name or not is entirely your business. And we'll keep it broad as well. Because I think what Catherine may be moving towards saying, but I'll leave her to say it if it is that with something as mild as what you're talking about, as long as you're doing yourself and anybody else no harm and they're consensual, then enjoy it to the hilt. Am I right there, Catherine? Is that about it?
Yes, I would say very much so. And is that okay for me to mention a website that could be a place to start looking for more information?
Yep.
If you'd be interested in contacting people or kind of exploring things, for a lot of people, informed consent is a good place to begin on the web. I mean, God knows, if you Google, I don't know, bondage plus foot fetish, you will your computer hard drive would burn out before you'd looked at every site that came up. But that's probably quite a good place to start looking.
Informed consent.
Informed consent. I think it's .com. Okay. I'm just kind of tapping away at the moment. But if you Google informed consent, that'll bring it up. And is there anything else that you'd like to say, Stephen?
Well, yes. Something that I have never quite understood. And that is, there's almost like a radar that certain women of a certain disposition seem to have. And they'll spot me almost in a crowd, and they would impose their will on me, so to speak, if you know what I mean. Very recently, I was at a party. There weren't that many men there, but this woman kind of said, I want to hurt you. And I said, well, yeah, okay then, try your best, baby. And then moments later, I don't remember how this happened, but I ended up on the floor, and I was like a trampoline, so to speak. I was being bounced on by her.
Can I just jump in for a second, Stephen? This actually happened?
It did happen.
This didn't happen.
There's a slight slither of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really enjoy it. I kind of thought, oh well, I'll go along with it. And it wasn't entirely consensual, you see. I wasn't aroused by it. I kind of thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Until somebody else joined in.
Okay, Stephen, let's listen to hear what Catherine has to say about that one. So, what are we talking about here, Catherine? Mild, what's it called? BDSM?
Yeah, I suppose I'd say a range of things. One is congratulations on being so adventurous. And also, congratulations. It sounds like you've got. Some people. Well, it's not something I know the term for in BDSM. But have you heard of the term gaydar, where gay people are able to recognise each other? And my gaydar is crap. I mean, a woman can be coming on to me. You know, I'm very, very bad at kind of picking that up, and I know some people who are very good at it. And it sounds as if there is, I know a lot of people who'd be very glad to have somebody respond to them like that at a party. Second thing is do be careful of your physical safety. I mean, don't let somebody tie you up, however nice they see, unless there's somebody you know well or somebody else knows where you are and what you're going to be doing, because there are issues around physical safety there. Also, in terms of if you decide to explore bondage on your own, there's a really good book by a guy called Jay Wiseman, which is something like Bondage for Beginners. And he talks a bit about self-bondage in that, and also talks about some of the risks associated with it. And however petite somebody is, if they're jumping up and down on top of you, there may be a risk of physical injury. So be careful and be adventurous. And in terms of consent, I know for me, certainly in work, consent is absolutely, outside of work as well, it's absolutely the bottom line. And also I know for me there are things that I've not been sure I wanted to do, or I've thought, kind of that may not excite me, that have been very thrilling. And also there have been things that both for myself and for my clientele, where the idea of it has been tremendously exciting, and actually the reality doesn't match up to that experience. And often, speaking entirely personally, sometimes for me, I need to do something more than once to see if it is actually something I like. Because the first time I'm thinking, gosh, I'm doing this. I never thought I'd do this. Or, oh, I always thought about doing this and I thought it'd be like this. So I'm so kind of preoccupied with my experience, I'm not actually noticing my body's reactions. Does that kind of make sense?
It does, yeah. It does. We're talking with Catherine Capp, who is a Monday night arts correspondent, but her other hat is that of... Oh, Catherine, I had an email last week after you'd been on from somebody, I forget the name, said they were uncomfortable now that they had come to know you.
Oh, I might have heard it with talking to me, saying I'm a hooker.
Saying that your job is a hooker. Saying now that they know you a bit because of your broadcasts, they find it discomforting.
Yes, I can understand that, and for me, because part of the reason I came on the programme was to raise issues around sex work. For me, I'm kind of very comfortable with that, and I'm quite keen to have that be how I am described, because part of what I see this as doing is breaking down some of the barriers and assumptions about people who sell sex. And I think you made the point that if I was I don't think you said nuclear physicist, but if there's a quirky contrast between my day job and my, sort of slots with you, then you'd probably be trailing that as well. So I'd say, sort of be aware of that discomfort, and it is interesting to me how that kind of stigma plays itself out. And, you get the kind of, in a way, I've heard a comedy sketch where somebody was going to great lengths to avoid saying the black guy over there. It's kind of like the guy who's he's scratching his head and he's wearing a red shirt and he was talking to Michelle. Yeah. And actually, it's because the guy's black, but they don't want to refer to the guy being black.
I know,
and in a way,
there were two boxers. There were two boxers during the Olympics going at each other, and one was from Africa and the other one was from Germany. You know what I'm saying? They're both wearing white shorts, okay, but the commentator had to keep saying that Ntumba has the black trim on his white shorts, and it was just crazy, Hey, your call. Do you want to post your next review, or do you want to take your next call?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about... I want to talk particularly about the theatre I went to, actually. I went to a beautiful theatre in Kingston called The Rose, where they've got a very pretty production of Love's Labour's Lost, which was great. But I wanted to kind of say it's a really lovely theatre, and anybody who's around there should check it out, because it's a little local theatre. They're struggling a little bit. The production of Love's Labour's Lost, it's a Shakespeare comedy, and it's not maybe the easiest Shakespeare comedy. It has a lot of wordplay, some of which is quite erudite, and particularly the opening scene is very, very dense, very dialogue-packed, and there's not necessarily that much action going on. It's a play, in some ways it's a very unsatisfying play. It's called Love's Labour's Lost because there are these three couples that are getting together, and it's four couples getting together, and it's all going swimmingly and with sufficient hoops for them to jump to. And then just as things are getting serious, the main female lead, who is the Princess of France, receives news that her father has died and she has to go back to France to take up her duties as queen. And so the whole play just kind of, it doesn't conclude, it stops. And that may be why it's not one of the well-known Shakespeare comedies like As You Like It, like Midsummer Night's Dream. But in a way, it's very like life. You see people, somebody will be really kind and interesting in one scene, and then in another scene, they'll be quite rude to somebody, particularly somebody who may be sort of lower class or dependent upon them. There's no black and white. It's a very mixed play, and it's a very realistic play. It's a very pretty production, Elizabethan dress, very kind of what it says on the tin. I think unlike with some of the great tragedies and some of the great comedies, I've not seen a production that produced this in a way that's made me see things that I've never seen before. It's a really good, beautiful, solid Shakespeare play, and so far, as I say, I've not seen anything that made me feel there's a lot of room to manoeuvre, to elucidate different things in the text. But it could be that the next version of it I see makes me completely change my mind on that.
Great. What's your favourite Shakespeare play?
Ooh, I'd have to say, for the whole, Hamlet. And I think that's partly because I saw an amazing film of Hamlet when I was about 12, which just blew my mind.
Who was Hamlet?
It's a guy called, oh heavens, I'm not going to be able to remember his name. It's a Russian production by Gregory Kazintsev, and I think the guy who played Hamlet was Innokenty Smoktunovsky. It's a 50s black and white production filmed in Elsinore, and it's just stunning. But for the verse, I'd say Macbeth. I saw a guy called Simon Russell Beale play Macbeth a few years ago, and it's still the best Macbeth I've ever seen.
Okay, we're talking to Catherine Capp. She's a hooker by day, our arts correspondent by night, and we're kind of box and coxing it this evening, and it's working really well. We took a number of calls, emails and Skypes last week from people who just wanted to touch base with somebody who knows what they're talking about what they suspect might be some slight kinks, that's all. If you fancy running something past Catherine, we're probably out of time this evening in about 5 minutes, but we can stack you for next time. studio@playradiouk.com is the email. You could call 01243 55 60 60. Catherine, your next caller is Chris.
Hi. Hi,
Hello.
Chris. Hi, how can I help you?
Just to let you know, Tommy, I do in fact have an apple tart in front of you right now.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So as you may have gathered, yes, it's a kind of food fetish of mine that I announced on the airwaves last week.
Yes. Yes, talk to me about this.
Yeah, and I was sort of working as a waiter in Germany for about a week. And I was looking at this really attractive waitress next to me, and next to her a tray of apple pies. Yeah. And I just thought it would be a really nice idea to just combine the two, you know?
Yes. Okay, and carry on.
Well, that's really what I, what have you experienced in that sort of way of?
And do you? So what's the thing that works for you on that? Is it the kind of the messiness? Is it the when you think about that or when you do that, what do you experience? What's happening for you?
Kind of the idea of kind of eating it off a naked body.
Right.
Just that, just combining the two things in one, in a kind of just.
And do you have a sweet tooth in other situations?
This kind of smoothness.
So it's a kind of combination of textures, and did you say it's got to be a pastry thing? It's kind of like the mixture of the kind of crumbly pastry and the apple
Not necessarily pastry, but kind of fruity and sort of sweet indulgent taste there.
Well, again, I mean, certainly I'd say that's something that's not uncommon. I mean, it's not something I've worked with a lot of myself, partly because I haven't advertised for it, and also because have you heard of Splanche? It seems to me a bit like there's a range of fetishes that are called Splanche that I don't know a lot about because I've not worked with, but that are often quite food-oriented. But a lot of it is about the messiness, about, there are websites with kind of women getting custard pies thrown at their breasts and things like that. But in terms of eating, I mean, I have a friend who part of her work is she does this. and she's a dancer and a model, and she also, when I was talking to her about her work, and said, I've done some stuff at the Plate Girl. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is new to me. And it is. It's you lie there and you're very, sort of, I mean, she's very beautiful and still and perfect. And somebody eats off you. And yeah, I can totally see it. It's not one of the things that, sort of floats my boat particularly. But yeah, go for it. And I just hope that people will be able to, sort of see it for the harmless, pleasurable, as long as it's not too hot on apple pie. It's a perfectly harmless, pleasurable, interesting kink, and that is good.
Do you think, Catherine, knowing women as you do, that Chris might be able to find a girlfriend or a partner who will go along with this?
I think it's possible. I think it's certainly hopeful. I think for both men and women, it's often quite difficult to find a partner who gives you what you want sexually. And I think lots of things make it difficult to talk openly about that. And, yeah, and so I think I don't think it's that women are having great sex and men are not.
Would you advise him to bring it up early on in the relationship, or wait until they were, kind of like thinking about sharing holidays and maybe even comparing dates for a wedding? When should you bring something like that up? Not on the first date.
I'd bring it up before the wedding. Because that whole kind of wedding cake kind of decision could become sort of I suppose for me, I feel like in terms of my own conversations, it would depend on having spoken to them about and finding out that they're sexually adventurous and that they're non-judgmental and they're open-minded, and if they're not those things, then they're probably not going to respond terribly well.
But I think something like what Chris was referring to, it's pretty harmless, and lots of people try experimenting with food during sex.
Yes.
And so, he could approach it somewhere along the lines of, after the meal, if they were thinking about dessert, that, a suggestion that they combine dessert with...
Yeah, but it's the paraphernalia that interests me here, because I had a guy I used to work for in TV, and he told me one day after a couple of beers that what he liked to do with his wife was they both used to like to get completely covered in baby oil and sort of writhe around.
Yes.
I said to him, doesn't that play havoc with the linen?
Yes.
And he said no, because what they did was, and this was presumably in the days before you could buy it by the yard, they used to tear up bin liners and then join them with duct tape and put them over the bed. And then obviously you had to clean it up afterwards, and no doubt there would be baby oil all over the carpet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a delicious and harmless kink, isn't it? But, Christopher, I think there's an awful lot of preparation and clearing up afterwards involved. That's all I would say to you. Thank you for your call, Christopher. I hope that's helped in some way.
Yeah, you've been thinking about this more than I have.
Thanks for your Skype, mate. It helps, doesn't it, Catherine, just to talk about these things as normal,
yes.
Which is, I think,
it does.
Important. Otherwise, you get lots of kids wandering around thinking that they're kind of weird and that they're going to get picked on and things, or never have any fun. And all they've got is...
And almost all of these things are, are much more common than we would expect.
I was arguing with Fiona before we came on air. My view about words on this is that I don't think anybody confines their sexual preferences to the missionary position in the bedroom twice a week.
Yeah.
Almost everybody does other things.
Yes.
In fact, I'll go so far as to say everybody would like to do other things.
Yeah.
Some people are lucky enough to do other things. And some of those other things might just be her on top, or maybe in the kitchen instead of the bedroom. And that's sort of the beginnings of what you might call kink, isn't it?
Yes.
But I think that kink is not quite so buccaneer as fetish. which is a long way from being perverted, but if there's a kind of a hierarchy of these terms, that's how I'd see it. But hey, you're the professional.
Well, I would say, obviously, yes, I'm lucky enough that I deal with this kind of thing on a fairly regular basis, but also, my experience is just one person's subjective experience. I would say in terms of fetish, I mean, when we're talking about where people do have a particular arousal, either by material or by a situation. It could be, outdoor sex we were discussing earlier. It could be, I think it becomes problematic for both parties involved when somebody finds they're only able to have satisfactory sexual experiences when the fetishized component is there, whether it's top-to-toe PVC or whether it's, Nina Simone playing in the background. If you have to have a single characteristic that's always there, that limits your options, and that's more difficult. So if you're, and after a while your girlfriend may think, actually, couldn't have some, take that, instead of Nina Simone, or your boyfriend might say, look, actually, I'm getting really sweaty in here. Can we just have sex with me naked for once? And yeah, I think, and I don't know many people who want to explore. People may want to explore their fetishes, but I'm not sure anybody wants to get into a situation where they're only able to have a satisfactory sexual experience when there's quite a lot of palaver involved, and that's when it can get tricky.
Catherine, I wanted to ask you, have you ever been in a situation where somebody has approached you with kink, fetish, however you want to describe it, and you thought, no, this isn't for me, I can't do this?
Yeah, I'm not good at racial abuse, which is something some people ask for. I'm not very good at humiliation generally, I'd say. I'm not very good at taking the mickey out of somebody's genitalia, or doing a whole kind of femdom thing. It's kind of called where you're saying that women are better than men and you're just a man, you're a little worm, kneel there and lick my boots. I've got no problem with somebody licking my boots. I'm just, you're doing it because you get off on it, not because you're a man and I'm a woman and you belong on your knees licking my boots. There are loads of things I don't do. I don't do scrotal saline injections. I don't do blood sports, partly because it's illegal. You cannot consent to having somebody cut you, and also because I'm not great with blood, and I would find it difficult to, if I was in a relationship with somebody where they wanted to explore that would give me a safe space in which to explore that, but I don't want to suddenly come over all feeble and faint when I've got somebody chained up and I'm supposed to be, delivering some great experience for them. Everybody I know has different boundaries, and some of them may be quite particular. Like there's a woman I know who is she's submissive and she likes to be tied up and she likes to be beaten and she likes to be this and that, and it's all, really quite, sort of full-on dramatic stuff. And if you say she's stupid, she'll hit you back because she really, really, really doesn't like to be called stupid. But you can say, you're a slut, you're a whore, you're a dirty bitch, all this kind of stuff. Fine, no problem. You call her stupid and she goes right back into reality with no break at all. So everybody has some boundaries, and the kick is to find what boundaries it's appropriate to push and what boundaries are just like, actually no, that's just something I don't do.
Okay,
and
Catherine,
the reason I don't do it is I don't get off on it.
Cool. This is great. Are you okay for another 5 minutes?
Yeah, cool, great.
Okay, I don't want to eat your evening up for you there.
No, it's fine.
Beautiful. We've got another review, I believe, from the world of arts.
Oh, right, okay.
No, not right now. Not right now. What we're going to do, because we've pushed the news back 10 minutes because this has been so unmissable.
Oh.
So maybe you can you got 2 minutes. Why don't you get a glass of water or even something stronger if you want? We'll catch up on the news and the weather. We'll relay some crucial messages. And then if you want to call Catherine, go right ahead. 01243 55 60 60. That's going to be tricky because we can only take the one call at a time at the minute.
But they can message me and I'll have them ready.
Or email Tommy, no, I'm lying, studio@playradiouk.com is the email address if you want to ask a question, put a point about your sexual preferences to Catherine Catt, who is our arts correspondent by night and a hooker by day. Skype address is play.radio.uk.
Play 2 UK. Headlines.
It's been ruled a high-ranking British soldier was unlawfully killed in Afghanistan because the army was making do with limited equipment. Captain David Hicks from 1st Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, died in Helmand on August 2007. VAT could be slashed to encourage us to spend our way out of the recession. Pressures mounting on the Chancellor to announce a 5.5% cut in his pre-budget report possibly next week. The global financial crisis will top the agenda when the incoming US President visits the White House shortly. Barack Obama and his wife Michelle will take a look round their new home before a meeting in the Oval Office. And 23 flood warnings are in place across the UK this evening. The Midlands and the South West are thought to be at the highest risk after several days of torrential rain and high winds.
Play 2 UK. Weather.
Heavy rain and strong winds in the southeast will clear during the evening. Many central and eastern parts will then have a dry night. The north and west will be windy with heavy showers. Gales are likely in southwest Scotland. Looking on to tomorrow, a windy day with gales in northwest England and Northern Ireland. Sunny spells, but also occasional showers with a longer spell of heavy rain for northwest England and Northern Ireland.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK. Missed anything?
Hello, this is Chris Tarrant.
Hello there, this is Sean Williamson.
James Whale.
If you speak to me like that again, I'll put you over my knee and spank you.
Not the Tommy Boyd Show.
Have you ever been contacted by the Biavians?
No, I've had a few close brushes with Uranus. Hello, this is Chris Tarrant. If you're hearing this now, you've missed me on Hertz's Half Hour. But don't worry, you can listen again at playradiouk.com/podcast.
playradiouk.com/podcast.
Missed anything? Then go to playradiouk.com/podcast. The Tommy Boyd Show. Only on Play 2 UK.
We're with our arts correspondent Catherine Catt. It's Play Radio UK. Monday night, Tommy Boyd, Fiona is here. It's about 20 to 11 UK time, PM of course. Good day around the world wherever you are, and if you're podcasting, hello whatever time of day, month or year it is. We're talking with Catherine Catt. Catherine has reviewed some dance and a performance of Love's Labour's Lost at Little Theatre. Did you say it was called The Rose in Kingston?
The Rose in Kingston. I think it's run by Peter Hall, who's a fairly well-known director.
He sure is. And what else have you been up to this